The tree lights blinked in that slow, hypnotic pattern that's supposed to feel festive. Red, green, gold, white. Red, green, gold, white. I counted 17 cycles before Melissa finally spoke. "Don't expect a present this Christmas," she said. "You don't deserve it." I was holding a mug of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes earlier. The ceramic pressed into my palm, solid and real, while everything else in the room seemed to tilt sideways. Not because of what she said, though that was plenty, but because of how she said it. Casual, like she was telling me we were out of milk. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah, okay." I watched her process this. Melissa had a tell when she expected conflict and didn't get it. Her left eyebrow would twitch, just barely, and her lips would press together like she was physically holding back words. There it was, the twitch. "That's it?" she asked. "Just okay?" "What else would you like me to say?" "I don't know, David. Maybe ask why." I took a sip of cold coffee, tasted like pennies. "Would it change anything?" "It might." "Then tell me." She set down her phone, finally, and looked at me with those green eyes that used to make me forget my own name. Now they just looked tired. Or maybe I was projecting. "You're being unreasonable," she said. "About what?" "About us. About our situation." Our situation. That's what we were calling it now. Not her request, not her demand. Our situation. 3 weeks ago, Melissa had sat me down at this same kitchen table and explained, very calmly and rationally, that she wanted to open our relationship. Not separate, not get divorced. Just explore. She used that word 6 times in one conversation. Explore. Like our marriage was a coastline and she'd spotted something interesting just offshore. "I need more," she'd said. "Don't you ever feel like there's more out there?" "More than what?" "Than this." This. 7 years of marriage. A decent apartment in a decent neighborhood. 2 incomes, no kids, a dog we'd rescued from the shelter who slept between us every night and snored like a tiny chainsaw. This? I'd told her no. Clearly, definitively, without anger. Just no. She'd cried. Asked if I loved her. I said of course I loved her. She asked if I wanted her to be happy. I said of course I wanted her to be happy. She asked why I was being so controlling then. Controlling. That word had rattled around my head for 3 weeks, like a marble in an empty jar. Now, standing in our kitchen with Christmas lights blinking their cheerful little pattern, Melissa was waiting for me to ask why I didn't deserve a present. To give her the opening she needed to relitigate the whole thing. I didn't ask. "Fine," she said finally. "Be that way." "What way?" "Cold, distant, punishing." I almost laughed. Almost. "I'm not punishing you, Mel. I'm just tired." "Of what?" "Of pretending this is about me being unreasonable." Her face changed then. Not dramatically. Just a slight tightening around her eyes, a millimeter shift in her posture. Defense mode. "I never said..." "You just did. You said I'm being unreasonable about our situation. Which situation is that exactly?" "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Turn this into a fight." "I'm not fighting. I'm asking a question." She grabbed her phone again, the universal signal for conversation over. "I have to finish this report for tomorrow. It's Christmas Eve. And I have a deadline." She walked past me toward the bedroom, her shoulder brushing mine in that way that's technically accidental, but feels completely deliberate. The door closed. Not a slam. Melissa never slammed doors. She was far too controlled for that. I stood there for a while, counting tree light cycles. Red, green, gold, white. Red, green, gold, white. The dog, Winston, a terrier mix with anxiety issues, pressed his nose against my leg. I scratched behind his ears, and he made that little groaning sound that meant he was content. "At least you're easy to please," I told him. He wagged his tail. I pulled out my phone and opened my browser. Typed 4 words into the search bar. "How to file divorce." The results loaded. 17 million hits. Apparently I wasn't alone. I didn't click on anything. Not yet. I just needed to see the words. Needed to know the option existed in more than just my head. My phone buzzed. Text from my buddy James. "Drinks tomorrow? Need to escape the in-laws." I typed back, "Can't." "Family stuff." Another buzz. "Everything good?" I stared at the message. Thought about typing the truth. Instead, "Yeah, all good." The bedroom door opened. Melissa came out with her laptop tucked under her arm. "I'm going to work in the living room. The light in there is better." "Sure." She paused, like she was waiting for me to say something else. When I didn't, she walked away. I heard her settling onto the couch, the soft click of her laptop opening, the rustle of papers. Through the doorway, I could see the edge of her profile, illuminated by the screen glow. 7 years. 7 years of learning how she took her coffee. 2 sugars, splash of cream, microwaved for exactly 30 seconds if it got cold. 7 years of knowing which side of the bed she preferred, right, closest to the bathroom. 7 years of memorizing her schedule, her rhythms, her tells. 7 years, and I'd somehow become unreasonable. I opened my browser again, clicked the first link. Steps to file for divorce in your state. Step 1. Determine if you meet residency requirements. I'd lived in this state my entire life. Check. Step 2. Decide on grounds for dissolution. Irreconcilable differences. Wasn't that the polite way of saying everything and nothing at once? Step 3. Gather financial documents. I knew where everything was. Joint account statements, tax returns, the deed to my truck. We'd been organized about money, at least. One shared checking account, separate savings. I'd always thought that was smart. Autonomous, but unified. Now it just made things easier to separate. Step 4. Consider mediation or legal representation. I'd need a lawyer, not because I wanted a fight, but because Melissa would lawyer up the second she got served. She believed in insurance, in protection, in making sure all her bases were covered. Step 5. File the petition. The website made it sound simple, like ordering takeout. Fill out the forms, pay the fee, submit to the courthouse. Wait for the process to complete. I bookmarked the page. Winston whined softly. His water bowl was empty. I filled it from the tap and watched him lap it up, his tags jingling with each movement. "You're going to be okay," I told him. "Whatever happens, you're coming with me." He looked up at me with those dark, trusting eyes. I wondered if dogs understood when things were about to change, if they could sense the shift in air pressure before the storm arrived. From the living room, I heard Melissa typing. Fast, aggressive keystrokes, the kind she used when she was annoyed. I pulled out my phone again. This time I opened my notes app and started a list. Things to take. Clothes laptop, important documents. Winston Dad's watch coffee maker. I bought it. I stopped. Read it back. It looked so small. 7 years reduced to 6 bullet points. I added another line. Dignity. Then I deleted it. Felt too dramatic. Too much like something Melissa would accuse me of. Being theatrical. Instead, I closed the app and opened my banking app. Logged into our joint account. We had about $8,000 saved. Not a fortune, but enough to get started somewhere new. I could probably scrape together first and last month's rent on a studio. Something small, something quiet. I logged into my individual savings, $12,000. I'd been socking away money for the past 3 years, thinking maybe we'd take a big trip. Italy, Japan, somewhere neither of us had been. Somewhere we could remember together. Now it was going to be security deposit money. My phone buzzed again. James, if you change your mind, we'll be at O'Malley's around 8. I glanced at the clock. 7:45. The bar was a 15-minute drive. I could go. Have one round. Come back. But what was the point? James would ask questions. He'd see through my face in about 30 seconds. And I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Wasn't ready to hear myself admit that my marriage was ending over a request I'd refused. Because that's what it would sound like. That I'd ended things because I was too rigid, too traditional, too afraid to let my wife have what she wanted. Nobody would ask what I wanted. I texted back, "Thanks, man. Next time." His response came immediately. "You sure? You sound off." I turned my phone face down on the counter. Through the doorway, I could see Melissa's fingers flying over her keyboard. She was good at her job, really good. Marketing manager at a firm that handled boutique brands, organic skincare, artisan coffee, handmade furniture. She knew how to make people want things they didn't need, how to create desire from nothing. Maybe that's what she'd done with herself. Created a desire for something else, something more. And when I wouldn't play along, I became the obstacle. I walked to the doorway, leaned against the frame. "Mel." She didn't look up. "Yeah? Can I ask you something? If it's quick?" When did I become the problem? Her fingers stopped. She looked at me, and for a second, just a second, I saw something like guilt flicker across her face. Then it was gone. "You're not the problem," she said carefully. "Then what am I? Why are you doing this right now? Because you told me I don't deserve a Christmas present. That's not—" She closed her laptop. "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" "I meant that, until you stop being so stubborn about this, I'm not going to pretend everything is fine." "I'm not asking you to pretend." "Yes, you are. You want me to just forget I ever brought it up, to go back to how things were. How were things? Safe, boring, predictable. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't know boring was a crime, I said quietly. It's not. It's just not enough anymore. For you? Yes. For me? I nodded. Okay. Okay what? Just okay. She stared at me, that eyebrow twitch happening again. You're impossible to talk to when you're like this. Like what? Calm. It's unnerving. I almost smiled. Almost. Would you prefer if I yelled? I'd prefer if you actually engaged with me instead of just shutting down. I'm not shut down. I'm just done arguing about this. We're not arguing. Exactly. She opened her laptop again. I have work to do. On Christmas Eve. Yes, David, on Christmas Eve, because some of us can't just clock out and stop caring. That one landed. Intentional or not, it landed. I pushed off the door frame. I'm going to bed. It's 8 o'clock. I know. I walked to the bedroom, Winston trotting behind me. The room smelled like Melissa's perfume, something floral and expensive that she'd asked for last Christmas. I'd spent 2 weeks researching it, making sure I got the right one. She'd cried when she opened it, happy tears. This year, I was getting nothing, and honestly, that felt fair. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone one more time, went back to that divorce filing website, read through the whole process step by step. It wasn't complicated. It was just final. I thought about Melissa in the living room, typing away at her report. Thought about how many nights she'd stayed up late working, how many times I'd brought her tea or rubbed her shoulders or just sat with her while she stressed over a deadline. I thought about the time she'd gotten food poisoning and I'd held her hair back while she got sick, then carried her to bed and stayed up all night making sure she was okay. I thought about our wedding day, the way she'd looked at me when I said my vows, the way I'd believed every word I'd said. Then I thought about 3 weeks ago, about her sitting across from me at this table, telling me she needed to explore. And I made my decision. Tomorrow was Christmas. I'd spend it like it was any other day. I'd smile when appropriate. I'd go through the motions. And the day after, while Melissa was at work, I'd start packing. I wasn't going to announce it. Wasn't going to give her a chance to talk me out of it or turn it into another negotiation. I was just going to do it. Because here's what I'd learned in the past 3 weeks. Silence scares people more than shouting. When you refuse to fight, they don't know what you're planning. And right now, I was planning plenty. Christmas morning came with snow. Light, powdery stuff that wouldn't stick but looked pretty against the gray sky. Melissa was already awake when I got up, sitting at the kitchen table with her phone and a cup of that tea she liked, the one that smelled like flowers and tasted like dirt. Morning, she said without looking up. Morning. I poured myself coffee. The machine groaned and hissed, producing something that looked like motor oil and tasted almost as bad. We needed a new one, or rather, I needed a new one for wherever I ended up living next. I'm going to my mom's this afternoon, Melissa said. She's doing her usual Christmas thing. Okay. You're welcome to come. I took a sip of terrible coffee. I'll pass. She finally looked up. It's Christmas, David. I know what day it is. So you're just going to sit here alone? Probably. She set down her phone. This is ridiculous. What is? This whole silent treatment thing you're doing. I'm not doing a silent treatment. You asked if I wanted to go to your mom's. I said no, that's just a regular conversation. It doesn't feel regular. Well, according to you, regular is boring. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair doesn't seem to be the currency we're using anymore. She stood up, grabbing her mug. I'll be back around 6. Have fun. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too. She disappeared into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, clothes rustling. 20 minutes later, she emerged in a sweater I'd bought her 2 years ago and jeans that made her look like she'd stepped out of a catalog. Don't forget to feed Winston, she said at the door. I won't. And if James texts, tell him I said hi. Sure. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. For a second, I thought she might say something real, something that wasn't tactical or defensive, but she just gave me a tight smile and left. I waited until her car pulled out of the parking lot. Counted to 60. Then I got to work. First stop, the bedroom closet. I pulled down my old duffel bag from the top shelf. Army surplus, ugly green, indestructible. I'd had it since college. Inside, it still smelled faintly like the camping trip Melissa and I had taken during our second year of dating. We'd gotten lost on the trail and ended up sleeping under a tree because neither of us had checked the weather forecast. She'd laughed so hard she'd cried, and I'd thought, This is it. This is the person I want to get lost with. Funny how memory works. I started with clothes, work pants, casual jeans, a few button-downs, t-shirts, socks, boxers. I didn't fold anything carefully, just stuffed it in. The goal wasn't aesthetics, it was efficiency. Second drawer, personal documents, birth certificate, passport, social security card. I kept them all in a folder labeled important because I was exactly that creative. I slid the folder into the duffel's side pocket. Third drawer, my dad's watch. I held it for a minute. The weight of it was comforting, solid. My father had worn this watch every day of his adult life until he'd handed it to me on my 18th birthday and said, "Take care of it. Took me 30 years to pay it off." It wasn't expensive, just a standard stainless steel piece with a leather band, but it kept time, and it reminded me of a man who'd never asked for anything he didn't earn. I slipped it onto my wrist. It ticked softly against my pulse. Next, technology. Laptop, charger, external hard drive with all my files. I kept everything backed up. Another habit from my dad, who'd lost an entire year of work once when his computer crashed and he didn't have copies. Digital is dangerous, he'd told me. Always have a backup plan. Good advice then. Even better advice now. I went through the apartment systematically. Bathroom, toiletries, razor, toothbrush, kitchen, my favorite coffee mug, the cast iron skillet I'd bought myself before I met Melissa, a chef's knife that had been a graduation present from my mom. Winston followed me from room to room, his tail wagging uncertainly. Dogs don't like change. They like routine, predictability, the comfort of knowing what comes next. "We're going on an adventure," I told him. He tilted his head, ears perked. Okay, maybe not an adventure, but definitely something new. I packed his food, his bowls, his leash, the stuffed duck he'd slept with since we'd brought him home. That duck was missing an eye and smelled like dog breath, but he loved it. By noon, I had 2 duffel bags, 1 backpack, and a box of miscellaneous items stacked by the door. Everything else, the furniture, the decorations, the kitchen appliances we'd bought together, could stay. I didn't want them, didn't need the reminders. I sat on the couch and pulled out my phone, opened a browser and searched for apartments. Studio, 1 bedroom, something in my price range that allowed dogs. 3 promising options came up. One was available immediately. I called the number. "Riverside Apartments, this is Garrett." "Hi, I saw you have a studio available?" "Yeah, we do. Ground floor, utilities included except electric. $700 a month." "Can I see it today?" "Today? It's Christmas." "I know, I can pay cash for the application fee." A pause. Then, "Give me an hour. I'll meet you there at 1:30. "Done." I hung up and stared at the Christmas tree in the corner. We'd decorated it together 2 weeks ago. Melissa had insisted on a theme, silver and blue, elegant and coordinated. I'd wanted multicolored lights and mismatched ornaments, the kind of tree that looked like it had been assembled over years of memories. We'd compromised, which meant we'd done it her way. I stood and walked over to it, unplugged the lights. The tree went dark, just a collection of branches and decorations that suddenly looked cheap and artificial. On one of the middle branches hung an ornament I'd bought our first Christmas together, a little ceramic dog with a Santa hat. It was tacky and bright, and I'd spent $8 on it at a craft fair. Melissa had rolled her eyes when I showed it to her, but she'd hung it on the tree anyway. I unhooked it, slipped it into my pocket. Then I went to the desk in the corner, the one we used for bills and paperwork, and pulled out a folder I'd hidden under a stack of old magazines. Divorce papers. I'd printed them 2 days ago at the library, using a guest computer so there wouldn't be a trace on my laptop. I'd filled them out carefully, triple-checking every line. Petitioner, David Matthew Cross. Respondent, Melissa Jane Cross. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. I'd signed them already. Now they just needed to be filed, but before that, they needed to be left somewhere Melissa would find them. I considered the kitchen table. Too obvious. The bedroom dresser, too aggressive. Finally, I settled on the coffee table in the living room, right where she always sat with her laptop. Impossible to miss, but not theatrical. I placed them in the center, the top page clearly visible. Bold letters. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Then I put my dad's wedding band next to them. I'd been wearing it since he passed away 3 years ago. He'd wanted me to have it. "Your mother would want you to keep it," he'd said in the hospital, his voice thin and papery. Something to remember us by. I'd worn it on my right hand, opposite my own wedding ring, a reminder of where I came from, of what commitment looked like when it was real. Now it sat on the table next to divorce papers, a full-circle kind of symbol that would have made my English teacher proud. I checked the time. 1:15. I needed to go. I loaded everything into my truck, a 10-year-old Ford Ranger that ran like a dream and looked like it had survived a demolition derby. Melissa hated it, said it was embarrassing. I loved it, said it was reliable. Winston jumped into the passenger seat, panting happily. He loved truck rides. Ready? I asked him. He barked once. That was a yes. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. Didn't look back. The apartment was in a complex on the east side of town, near the industrial area. Not fancy, but clean. The buildings were old brick, probably from the 70s, with exterior staircases and small patios. Garrett was waiting outside the office. He was younger than he'd sounded on the phone, early 20s maybe, with a beard that looked accidental and a coat that was 2 sizes too big. David? That's me. He shook my hand. Let's take a look. The studio was exactly what I needed. Small, plain, functional. One room with a kitchenette in the corner, a bathroom with a shower stall, a window that looked out onto the parking lot. The walls were beige, the carpet was brown. It was the most aggressively neutral space I'd ever seen. It's perfect, I said. Garrett blinked. Really? Most people want to think about it. I don't need to think about it. Okay. Well, I'll need first month, last month, and a security deposit, plus the application fee. That's $2,100 total. I pulled out my wallet, counted out $2,200 in cash. Keep the extra for the credit check. He stared at the money. You always carry this much cash? Only when I need to. We went back to the office. I filled out the application while Garrett ran my information. 10 minutes later, he handed me a key. You're good to go, he said. Move in is whenever you want. How about now? Works for me. I drove back to the apartment and started unloading. 2 trips, and everything was inside. The space looked even emptier with my stuff in it, like a stage set waiting for actors. Winston explored every corner, sniffing and marking territory. He seemed pleased, or at least not upset. I set up his bowls in the kitchenette. Filled one with water, one with food. He ate like he hadn't seen a meal in days, even though I'd fed him this morning. Then I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, and pulled out my phone. 4:30. Melissa would be at her mom's for another hour, maybe 2. She'd come home to an empty apartment and divorce papers on the coffee table. I tried to imagine her reaction. Shock, probably. Maybe anger, definitely confusion. Then I stopped imagining, because it didn't matter anymore. I called James. Hey man, change your mind about drinks? Not exactly, I said, but I need a favor. What kind of favor? The kind where you don't ask questions until I'm ready to answer them. A pause. You okay? Define okay? That bad? Getting there. Where are you? I gave him the address. I'll be there in 20, he said. James showed up in 18 minutes with a 6-pack of cheap cans and a bag of takeout from the Chinese place near his house. Merry Christmas, he said, handing me both. You didn't have to do this. Yeah, I did. You sounded like garbage on the phone. We sat on the floor and ate directly from the containers. Winston begged shamelessly, and James slipped him pieces of chicken when he thought I wasn't looking. So, James said finally, you want to tell me what's going on? Not particularly. Too bad. I brought provisions. You owe me an explanation. I opened one of the cans, took a long drink. I left Melissa. He stopped mid-chew. You what? Left. Moved out. Filed for divorce. When? Today. Today? As in Christmas? Yeah. That's dramatic. Maybe. No, seriously. That's some next-level holiday destruction right there. She told me I didn't deserve a Christmas present, I said. So I gave her one anyway. James stared at me. Then he started laughing. Not polite laughter. Real, bent-over, can't-breathe laughter. That's cold, man. That's legitimately cold. She wanted more, I said. I'm giving her more. More space, more freedom, more time to explore. Explore what? I met his eyes. You really want to know? His smile faded. Oh no. Yeah. She asked you to open the marriage. Yeah. And you said? No. He let out a low whistle. How long ago? 3 weeks. And she's been punishing you since? More or less. James shook his head. I'm sorry, man. That's rough. It is what it is. No, it's not. It's messed up. She doesn't get to ask for that and then make you the bad guy when you say no. I shrugged. Doesn't matter now. Sure it does. How? Because you're sitting in an empty apartment on Christmas drinking bad drinks and eating Chinese food with me instead of with your wife. Ex-wife. Not yet, she's not. Close enough. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, snow started falling again. Heavier this time, the kind that would actually stick. You need anything? James asked. Furniture? A TV? A couch that isn't the floor? Eventually. I'm serious. I've got stuff in my garage. It's yours if you want it. Thanks. What are you going to do now? Sleep, shower, go to work tomorrow like nothing happened. And Melissa? She'll figure it out. That's it? You're just done? I looked at him. Yeah, I'm done. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, but for the record, I'm on your side. I know. We finished eating. James left around 7, taking the empties with him and promising to check in tomorrow. I locked the door behind him and stood in the middle of my new apartment, my new life. It was quiet, empty, completely mine. I pulled out the ceramic dog ornament from my pocket, set it on the windowsill where I could see it from anywhere in the room. Then I lay down on the floor with Winston curled up next to me and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, Melissa would find the papers. Tomorrow, everything would start moving forward. But tonight I just won the first round. I woke up on the floor with Winston's paw on my face. My back screamed in protest. Apparently 37 was the age where sleeping on carpet turned into a full-body assault. My phone showed 6:47 a.m., December 26th, the day after Christmas, the day Melissa would come home to an empty apartment. I stood up, joints popping like bubble wrap, and shuffled to the bathroom. The mirror showed someone who looked like me but rougher. Stubble, dark circles, eyes that were a little too alert for someone who'd slept 4 hours. I splashed water on my face and got dressed. Work boots, jeans, a flannel shirt, same outfit I'd worn 1,000 times. Comfort and routine. I fed Winston, then headed out to grab actual coffee, not the motor oil I'd made yesterday. There was a diner 2 blocks away that claimed to be open 365 days a year. Today was the test. The open sign was lit. I pushed through the door into warmth and the smell of bacon grease and fresh coffee. A waitress with gray hair and a name tag that said Dorothy looked up from behind the counter. Sit anywhere, hun. I took a booth in the back. Dorothy brought me coffee without asking, which immediately elevated her to hero status. You want food or just the caffeine? Eggs, scrambled, toast, nothing fancy. Coming up? I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Melissa. 7 texts. I didn't read them. Not yet. I needed coffee first. Dorothy brought my food. I ate slowly, methodically, letting each bite register. The eggs were decent. The toast was perfect. Butter melted into every corner. The coffee was strong enough to restart my heart. When I was done, I finally opened Melissa's texts. Where are you? David, this isn't funny. We need to talk. Right now. I can't believe you did this. Call me, please. I'm serious. Call me. Fine. Don't call. But we're going to talk about this. No questions about whether I was okay. No concern about where I'd gone. Just demands and accusations and that word, please. That felt more like a command than a request. I typed back 1 sentence. Got your gift? 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then my phone rang. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Yeah? Where are you? Her voice was tight, controlled, the tone she used when she was trying very hard not to lose it in public. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. You left. You just left. Without saying anything. I said plenty. You weren't listening. That's not fair. Funny. That's what you said yesterday. A pause. I could hear her breathing. Quick, shallow breaths that meant she was pacing. She always paced when she was stressed. Come home, she said finally. Let's talk about this like adults. I don't think we have the same definition of like adults. David? You told me I didn't deserve a Christmas present, I said calmly. So I gave you one instead. Divorce papers, freedom, everything you wanted. That's not what I wanted. No? Because 3 weeks ago you wanted to open our marriage. Yesterday you wanted me to know I didn't deserve a gift. Today you want to talk like adults. I'm having a hard time keeping track. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Which part? The present comment or the open marriage request? You're twisting my words. I'm repeating them. Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Softer. The tone she used when she wanted something. David, please, just come home. We can work this out. Can we? Yes, if you just listen. I listened for 3 weeks. You wanted more. You wanted to explore. You wanted me to understand that you were unhappy with what we had. I heard all of it. And you're just giving up? Just like that? I'm not giving up. I'm respecting your needs. By filing for divorce? By removing the obstacle. Silence. I'm the obstacle? Her voice cracked slightly. Your words, not mine. You said I was being unreasonable, controlling, that I was stopping you from being happy. So now I'm not. Problem solved. You can't just, this is insane. Maybe, but it's done. Where are you staying? Somewhere else. David, I have to go. Work starts in an hour. It's the day after Christmas. Nobody works today. I do. I hung up before she could respond. Dorothy refilled my coffee without comment. I thanked her and left a 20 on the table for a $12 meal. She deserved it. My phone rang again. I silenced it. Work was exactly where I needed to be. The warehouse was mostly empty, skeleton crew until after New Year's, which meant I could focus without interruption. I spent the morning reorganizing inventory, checking shipments, updating spreadsheets, mindless work that required just enough attention to keep my brain from looping back to Melissa. Around noon, my supervisor Frank stopped by my station. Didn't expect to see you today, he said. Needed something to do. Fair enough, you okay? Why wouldn't I be? He shrugged. You look like you slept in a dumpster. Close. Slept on a floor. Moving? Something like that. Frank nodded. He was good at not pushing. Well, if you need time off, I don't. All right, just saying. He walked away, and I went back to inventory sheets. My phone buzzed. Not a call this time. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Lisa, Melissa's friend. She's really upset. Whatever is going on, you need to fix it. I stared at the message. Lisa. I'd met her maybe twice. She worked with Melissa. They had lunch together sometimes. She wore too much perfume and talked too loud. I typed back, tell her to read the papers. Everything she needs to know is there. Another buzz. You're being cruel. No, I'm being clear. She loves you. Funny way of showing it. I blocked the number and got back to work. The afternoon dragged. My phone buzzed periodically. More calls, more texts, all of which I ignored. Around 3, James called. You alive? He asked. Mostly. Melissa has been blowing up everyone we know trying to find you. Let her look. She called me. What did you tell her? That I didn't know where you were, which is technically true. I know your address, but not your current location. Thanks. She sounded really upset, man. I'm sure she did. You're not going to talk to her? I did, this morning. And? And nothing. She wanted me to come home and work it out. I said no. James was quiet for a moment. You're really doing this? Yeah. No second thoughts. None. All right. Just checking. You need anything? I'm good. I'll bring by that furniture tomorrow. You can't keep sleeping on the floor. Appreciate it. We hung up, and I finished my shift. Drove back to the apartment as the sun set, painting the snow orange and pink. Winston greeted me like I'd been gone for a year instead of 10 hours. I took him for a walk around the complex, letting him sniff every snow-covered corner and mark his territory. When we got back, I made myself a sandwich, turkey and cheese on bread that was slightly stale but edible. Sat on the floor and ate it while Winston crunched his kibble. My phone lit up. Another text from Melissa. I talked to a lawyer. He said you can't just file like this. We have to try mediation first. I researched while I ate. She was wrong. In this state, you didn't need mediation unless there were kids or contested assets. We had neither. I typed back, your lawyer is mistaken. Check again. 3 dots. Then, why are you doing this? Because you told me I didn't deserve a gift. I said I was sorry. No. You said you were angry. That's not the same thing. What do you want from me? I stared at that question for a long time. What did I want? An apology that meant something. An acknowledgement that asking your spouse to open your marriage isn't just a request, it's a fundamental rejection of everything you built together. An admission that calling me controlling, unreasonable, and obstacle adjacent was unfair. But mostly, I wanted her to understand that actions have consequences. I typed, nothing. Her response came fast. I don't believe you. Believe what you want. You're being childish. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I put my phone face down and finished my sandwich. Outside, snow was falling again. heavy, thick flakes that stuck to everything. The parking lot was turning white, the streetlights casting yellow halos through the storm. I thought about Melissa in our apartment, former apartment, looking at the empty closet, the missing coffee maker, the gaps where my things used to be. I thought about her calling Lisa, calling James, probably calling her mother and sisters, and whoever else would listen. I thought about the divorce papers still sitting on that coffee table, whether she'd signed them yet, whether she'd thrown them away, whether she was reading them for the 10th time, trying to find a loophole. Then I stopped thinking about her, because that was the point. I'd spent 3 weeks trying to make sense of her request, trying to find a compromise that didn't compromise everything I believed in, trying to be understanding and reasonable and mature. And where had it gotten me? Accused of being controlling, told I didn't deserve a gift, made to feel like the problem in my own marriage? So I'd left, quietly, definitively. No dramatic confrontation, no shouting match, no last-ditch attempt to change her mind. Just action. Winston jumped onto my lap, which wasn't really a lap since I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, and licked my chin. "We're going to be fine," I told him. "Better than fine." He wagged his tail. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. Tomorrow, James would bring furniture. I'd set up my new space, make it feel like home. I'd establish a routine, work, gym, groceries, sleep, simple, predictable, boring. And for the first time in weeks, boring sounded perfect. I lay down on the floor, Winston curled against my side, and closed my eyes. Round 1 was over. Round 2 hadn't started yet. But when it did, I'd be ready. James showed up at 8 the next morning with a pickup truck full of furniture and a thermos of coffee that actually tasted like coffee. "You look better," he said, handing me the thermos. I slept on carpet again. The bar is low. "Well, today we fixed that." He'd brought a futon that folded into a couch, a small kitchen table with 2 chairs, a lamp, and a TV that was probably older than both of us combined. "It's not pretty," he admitted as we hauled the futon up the stairs, "but it's functional. Perfect." We spent the next hour setting everything up. The futon went against the wall opposite the window. The table fit nicely in the kitchenette area. The lamp went on the floor because I didn't have an end table. The TV sat on a cardboard box. When we were done, the place looked almost livable. Almost. "Better?" James asked. "Much." He collapsed onto the futon, testing it. "Not bad. I slept on this thing for 2 years in college." "Explains a lot about you?" "Hey, I turned out fine." "That's debatable." He grinned, then his expression shifted. "So, real talk? What's the plan here?" "Plan?" "Yeah. You left Melissa, filed for divorce. Now what?" I sat down next to him. "Now I live my life." "That's it?" "That's it." "Come on, man. There's got to be more. You don't just walk away from 7 years without some kind of end game." I took a sip of coffee. "The end game is freedom." "Freedom from what?" "From feeling like the villain in my own marriage." James nodded slowly. "She really did a number on you, didn't she?" 3 weeks of being told I'm the problem for not wanting to share my wife? Yeah, that'll do it." "Have you talked to anyone else about this? Your family?" "Not yet. They're going to ask questions. Let them." "And what are you going to say? The truth? Melissa wanted something I couldn't give her. We disagreed. Well, I left." "You're not going to mention the open marriage thing." "Why would I? That's between me and her." "Because people are going to take sides. And if you don't tell them your side, they'll only hear hers." I hadn't thought about that. Or maybe I had and just didn't care. "Let her tell whatever version she wants," I said. "I'm not interested in winning a popularity contest." "No, but you might be interested in not being the bad guy." "I'm already the bad guy. I left on Christmas." "After she told you that you didn't deserve a present. Context matters." "Does it?" James gave me a long look. "You're angrier than you're letting on." "Maybe. Definitely. And that's fine. You should be angry. But you need to think about what comes next." "I told you." "I know what you told me. Live your life. Move on. Very zen. But we both know that's not all of it." I didn't answer. "Look," James said, leaning forward. "I've known you since freshman year. You don't do things halfway. You don't just walk away. You plan, you calculate, you make sure everything lines up exactly how you want it." "Your point?" "My point is, you didn't just leave Melissa. You left her a message. Divorce papers on Christmas. That's deliberate. That's you making a statement." "So? So what's the next statement?" I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the parking lot was still covered in yesterday's snow. Someone had written "Wash me" on a car windshield. I don't know yet, I said finally, but I'll figure it out. James stood too. Just promise me you won't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that ends with you in trouble or her with ammunition. I'm not going to do anything illegal. That's not what I asked. I turned to face him. I'm going to make sure she understands that actions have consequences. That's all. That sounds ominous. It's supposed to. He studied me for a moment, then shook his head. All right. But when you need backup, and you will, call me. I will. I'm serious. Don't go lone wolf on this. Noted. He grabbed his keys. I've got to run. Promised my sister I'd help her move some stuff, but I'm around if you need anything. Thanks for the furniture. Anytime. After he left, I sat on the futon and pulled out my phone, scrolled through the messages I'd been ignoring. Most were from Melissa, a few from numbers I didn't recognize, probably more of her friends weighing in. One message stood out. It was from Rachel, Melissa's older sister. David, I don't know what's going on, but Melissa is a wreck. Whatever happened, you two need to work it out. Family is too important to throw away. I stared at that message. Rachel had always been nice to me. She'd been at our wedding, crying happy tears during the vows. She'd sent us a handmade quilt as a gift, something she'd spent months working on. I liked Rachel, respected her, but she didn't know the whole story. I typed back, ask Melissa what she asked me 3 weeks ago, then decide if I'm the one throwing things away. Send. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Rachel. Hello? What did she ask you? Rachel's voice was careful, probing. She didn't tell you? She said you two were having problems, that you weren't willing to work through them. Is that all she said? A pause. She said you were being inflexible, that she needed more from the relationship and you refused to even consider it. More, I repeated. That's an interesting way to phrase it. David, what did she ask you? She asked me to open our marriage, to let her see other people while staying married to me. Silence. Long, heavy silence. She what? Rachel's voice had changed. Sharper, disbelieving. You heard me. And you said no. Of course I said no. And she's been, what? Punishing you for it? Pretty much. Culminating in her telling me I didn't deserve a Christmas present. Oh my God. Yeah. David, I didn't know. She made it sound like you were the one being unreasonable. I know, that's the thing about stories. They change depending on who's telling them. Rachel exhaled shakily. I need to talk to her. That's between you two. She can't just... you can't ask someone that and then act like they're the problem when they say no. You'd think. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have texted you without knowing the full story. It's fine. You were looking out for your sister. Still, I feel terrible. Don't. You didn't do anything wrong. We talked for a few more minutes. Rachel asked if I was okay, where I was staying, if I needed anything. I gave her the basics without going into detail. When we hung up, I felt oddly lighter. Someone knew the truth now. Someone who wasn't going to automatically take Melissa's side. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my mom. Your brother says you left Melissa. Is this true? I grimaced. Of course my brother knew. He and James were friends on social media. Information spread like wildfire in small circles. I called her instead of texting. David? She sounded worried. Hey, Mom. What's going on? Randy said you moved out. I did. Why? I gave her the abbreviated version. Melissa wanted things I couldn't give. We'd reached an impasse. I'd left to give us both space. Space or divorce? Mom asked. She'd always been direct. Divorce. Oh, honey. It's okay. It's the right decision. Are you sure? 7 years is a long time. I know, but sometimes things just run their course. Did she cheat on you? The question caught me off guard. What? No. Why would you ask that? Because you sound too calm. When your father and I had problems, I was either screaming or crying. You sound like you're ordering a pizza. I'm just done being emotional about it. Nobody's done being emotional about their marriage ending. Then I'm delaying the emotional part, she sighed. Where are you staying? Got a place on the east side. It's small, but it works. You need anything? Money, food, company? I'm good, Mom. Really. You know I'm here if you need me. I know. And David? Yeah? If you change your mind, there's no shame in trying to work things out. I'm not changing my mind. Okay, but the offer stands. We hung up, and I sat there staring at my phone. 2 conversations, 2 different reactions. Rachel was appalled. Mom was supportive but skeptical. I wondered how many more of these conversations I'd have to have. How many times I'd need to explain or defend or justify. Then I decided I didn't care. Let people think what they wanted. Let them take sides. Let them gossip and speculate and judge. I knew the truth. That was enough. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This is Trevor, Melissa's co-worker. She told me what you did. You're a real piece of work. I stared at the message. Trevor. I'd met him once at a company party. He'd spent the entire time talking about his CrossFit routine and his car. I typed back, "Did she tell you what she asked me to do?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. That's between you two. Exactly, so maybe stay out of it. I blocked the number. Over the next few hours, I got 3 more messages from people I barely knew, all of them basically calling me a coward or worse for leaving, none of them asking for my side of the story. Melissa was doing exactly what I'd expected, telling a version of events that made her the victim and me the villain, and people were buying it. But here's what she didn't realize. I didn't need to defend myself to her friends. I didn't need to win anyone over. I just needed to let the truth leak out slowly. Let the people who mattered, like Rachel, ask the right questions. Let the cracks in Melissa's story show themselves. Because the thing about lies, even lies of omission, is that they only work if everyone stays in line, if nobody pushes back, if nobody asks for details. And Melissa's story had details that didn't add up. Why would a loving husband suddenly leave on Christmas without explanation? Why would someone who'd been together for 7 years just walk away? Why divorce papers instead of a conversation? The more people thought about it, the more questions they'd have. And eventually, some of those questions would get back to Melissa. My phone rang. Melissa. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What? People are asking me questions. Her voice was tight. Rachel called. She's demanding to know if I really asked you to open our marriage. Did you? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Did you or didn't you? Yes, but you're making it sound... I'm not making it sound like anything. I'm telling the truth. You're turning people against me. I'm answering questions honestly. There's a difference. You could have just kept it between us. I did, until your friends started texting me, calling me names. Now I'm defending myself. By making me look bad. You did that yourself. Silence. This isn't over, she said finally. Yeah, it is. We have to divide assets. Work out the apartment lease. Handle Winston. Winston is mine. Non-negotiable. We adopted him together. And I'm the one who takes care of him, who walks him, who feeds him, who pays his vet bills. He's mine. David, I'm not arguing about this. Pick your battles, Mel. The dog isn't one you'll win. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from finally standing my ground without apologizing for it. I looked down at Winston, who was lying at my feet with his head on his paws. You're staying with me, I told him, no matter what. He thumped his tail once. Good enough. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the apartment, organizing my stuff, making the space feel more like home. Small things. Hanging my dad's watch on a nail by the door, putting the ceramic dog ornament on the windowsill, setting up my laptop on the kitchen table. Around dinner time, James texted. How's it going? Better. Mom knows, Rachel knows. Half of Melissa's friend group apparently knows. And Melissa is realizing she can't control the narrative as easily as she thought. Good. Keep your head down and let her implode on her own. That's the plan. Smart man. I made myself dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce because I wasn't exactly a chef, and ate it while watching the ancient TV James had brought. Some cop show I'd never seen before. It was terrible and perfect. My phone buzzed one more time. Melissa again? We need to talk. In person. Tomorrow. I typed back, no. Please. Just an hour. There's nothing to talk about. David, please. I'll explain everything. Just give me a chance. I stared at that message. Part of me, the part that had spent 7 years loving her, wanted to say yes. Wanted to hear her out. Wanted to believe that maybe somehow we could fix this. But the rest of me knew better. I gave you 3 weeks to explain. You spent them punishing me instead. We're done talking. I put my phone on airplane mode and finished my terrible spaghetti. Outside, the snow was melting. The parking lot had turned into a slushy mess, gray and brown, and nothing like the pristine white from yesterday. Winston curled up on the futon next to me, and I scratched behind his ears. We're going to be fine, I told him again. And for the first time, I actually believed it. I found out about him by accident. It was 3 days after New Year's. I'd gone back to the old apartment to pick up the last of my things, some books, a pair of boots I'd forgotten, the coffee maker that was technically a gift from my grandmother and therefore definitively mine. Melissa was supposed to be at work. That's what her schedule said. Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., she had a meeting with a client across town. I'd timed it specifically. But when I pulled into the parking lot, her car was there, and so was a truck I didn't recognize. Gray Chevy Silverado, newer model, one of those oversized things with chrome accents and spotless paint. The kind of truck that had never seen a day of actual work. I sat in my Ranger for a minute, debating. I could leave, come back later, avoid whatever scene was about to unfold. But then I thought about the divorce papers still sitting on that coffee table, about the 3 weeks of being made to feel like I was the problem, about the way she'd told me I didn't deserve a present. I got out of the truck. The apartment door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, quietly. Voices from inside. Melissa's laugh. Light, carefree. The way she used to laugh with me before everything got complicated. And a man's voice. Deep, confident. You worry too much. He's not coming back. You don't know that. I do know that. Guy like that? He's already moved on. David's not. He's more complicated than that. Every guy is simple if you know which buttons to push. I stepped into the apartment. They were in the kitchen, Melissa leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee, the man sitting at the table like he owned the place. He was exactly what I'd pictured. Mid-30s, expensive haircut, wearing jeans and a button-down that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Handsome in that generic catalog model way. David. Melissa straightened up, coffee sloshing over the rim of her mug. What are you doing here? Getting my stuff. What's he doing here? The man stood, extending his hand like we were at a networking event. Kyle Patterson. I'm a friend of Melissa's. I didn't shake his hand, just looked at it until he lowered it awkwardly. A friend, I repeated. Yes. The kind of friend who shows up on a Tuesday morning when her husband just moved out? Kyle glanced at Melissa. She looked at the floor. It's not what you think, she said quietly. Really? Because what I think is pretty straightforward. David, how long? It's not like that. How long? She set down the mug. Her hands were shaking. 2 months. 2 months. We'd been married 7 years, together for 9. And for 2 months, she'd been... So when you asked to open the marriage, I said slowly, it wasn't theoretical. I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to be honest. You wanted permission. There's a difference. Kyle cleared his throat. Look, man, I didn't know she was married when you what? He stopped, looked at Melissa. She shook her head slightly. Right, I said, when you started whatever this is. It just happened, Melissa said. We met at a networking event and we just connected. Connected. Yes. And you didn't think to mention you had a husband? I did mention it. Kyle knew. I turned to him. You knew she was married and you pursued her anyway? I didn't pursue anyone. We're both adults. We made a choice. A choice. That's what we're calling it. David, please. Melissa stepped toward me. I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I wanted to tell you. That's why I asked about opening things up. I was trying to be fair. Fair would have been telling me before you started this. Fair would have been ending things with me first. Fair would have been literally anything other than what you did. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. Kyle shifted his weight. Maybe I should go. Yeah, I said. Maybe you should. He looked at Melissa. She nodded. He grabbed his keys from the counter and walked past me, careful not to make contact. The door closed behind him. Melissa and I stood in the kitchen, the silence thick and heavy. So, I said finally. 2 months? Yes. The whole time you were telling me I was being unreasonable, you were already with someone else. I wasn't trying to hurt you, just trying to have it both ways. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. It came out harsh, bitter. You've been lying to me for 2 months, and I'm the one being unfair. I didn't lie. You absolutely did. Every day you didn't tell me, that was a lie. Every time you came home and acted normal, that was a lie. Every time you made me feel crazy for not wanting to open our marriage when you'd already opened it yourself, that was a lie." She was crying now. Real tears, not the manipulative kind. Not that it mattered. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I'm so sorry." "Me too." I walked to the bedroom and grabbed the boots from the closet, the books from the shelf, the coffee maker from the counter. Melissa watched me, not saying anything, tears streaming down her face. When I had everything, I stopped at the door. "Sign the papers," I said. "Don't drag this out." "David, sign them. We're done." I left, got in my truck, threw my stuff in the passenger seat, and drove. I didn't go back to my apartment. Instead, I drove aimlessly, looping through neighborhoods I barely recognized, trying to process what I'd just learned. 2 months. She'd been seeing him for 2 months before she asked to open our marriage, which meant everything. The conversation, the request, the punishment when I said no, all of it had been theater. A performance designed to make me the bad guy so she could feel better about what she was already doing. My phone rang. Melissa. I declined. It rang again. Declined. A text. "Please let me explain." I turned off my phone. I ended up at a park on the edge of town. Empty playground, frozen pond, benches covered in snow. I sat on one of the benches and stared at nothing. Kyle Patterson. The name rolled around in my head. I pulled out my phone and turned it back on. Opened Facebook. Searched his name. 3 Kyle Pattersons popped up. The third one was him. Profile picture of him standing next to a boat, sunglasses on, smiling like he just won something. I clicked through his profile. Public posts only, but that was enough. He worked in real estate. Independent contractor, bought properties, fixed them up, flipped them. His page was full of before and after photos of houses he'd renovated. Lots of hashtags, lots of inspirational quotes about success and determination. He looked successful, confident, the kind of guy who closed deals and didn't lose sleep over it. I clicked on his photos, scrolled back. There, 2 months ago, a picture of him at some event, wearing a suit, holding a drink. Caption, "Great networking night with amazing people." I zoomed in. In the background, barely visible, was Melissa. Same event, same night. That's where they met. I kept scrolling, found more pictures, him at construction sites, him with clients, him on vacation in Mexico, posing with a margarita. Guy had money. Or at least looked like he did. I closed Facebook and opened LinkedIn. Same Kyle Patterson. Profile said he'd been in real estate for 8 years. Multiple successful flips. Currently working on a historic building renovation downtown. I pulled up Google Maps. Searched for historic buildings under renovation. Found 3 possibilities. One was a former library being turned into condos. Another was an old church becoming event space. The third was a warehouse conversion near the river. I drove to the warehouse first. It was a massive brick building with scaffolding on one side and a banner that read, "Coming soon, River Lofts." Kyle's truck was parked out front. I didn't stop, just drove past slowly, noting the layout. Single entrance in front, loading dock in back, construction crew working on the second floor. Then I drove to the church, empty parking lot, no signs of activity. The library was the same, quiet, dormant, so it was the warehouse. That's where he was working, where he spent his days. I drove back to my apartment and sat on the futon with Winston. "I found him," I told the dog. Winston tilted his head. "Kyle Patterson, real estate flipper. Drives a truck that's never seen mud. Probably has a boat he uses twice a year. Thinks he's clever." Winston yawned. "Yeah, you're right. He's boring. But he's also the reason Melissa wanted to blow up our marriage." I pulled out my phone and started searching. Kyle Patterson real estate, Kyle Patterson flips, Kyle Patterson River Lofts. Found an article from 6 months ago. Local developer purchases warehouse, plans luxury conversion, projected completion, spring 2026. Investment, $1.2 million. That's a lot of money. I kept digging, found property records online. Kyle didn't own the building outright. He had a partner, an LLC registered to a guy named Brian Foster, 50-50 split. I searched Brian Foster, found him on LinkedIn, finance guy, investment manager. So Kyle was the face of the operation, and Brian was the money. Interesting. I spent the next 2 hours going down every digital rabbit hole I could find. Kyle's business history, his previous flips, his social media presence, everything was public, everything was accessible. By the time I finished, I had a pretty clear picture. Kyle Patterson was ambitious. He talked a big game, posted a lot of inspirational content and seemed to be doing well, but he wasn't as successful as he wanted people to think. His last 3 flips had taken longer than projected. 2 of them had sold for less than the asking price. The warehouse project was his biggest gamble yet, and it was already behind schedule. The construction crew I'd seen was smaller than it should have been for a project that size, which meant either he was cutting corners or running out of budget. Probably both. I closed my laptop and leaned back on the futon. Kyle Patterson wasn't just the guy who'd been sleeping with my wife. He was a guy with pressure points, vulnerabilities, things that could be pushed, and suddenly I had a very clear idea of what my next move would be. I waited 3 days before making my move. 3 days of research, 3 days of watching Kyle's patterns, 3 days of planning exactly what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. Friday afternoon, I drove to the warehouse. Kyle's truck was there, along with 2 work vans and a sedan that probably belonged to his partner Brian. I parked across the street and waited. At 4:30, Brian left, got in the sedan and drove away. At 5, the work crew started packing up. Tools into vans, tarps folded, ladders secured. By 5:15, they were gone. Kyle's truck was still there. I waited until 5:30. Then I crossed the street and walked into the building. The ground floor was gutted. Exposed brick walls, concrete floors, metal support beams. It smelled like dust and fresh paint. Construction lights hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows. Voices from the second floor. Kyle on the phone. "I know it's behind schedule. We hit some issues with the electrical." "Yeah, I'm aware. Look, we'll make the deadline. I just need another 2 weeks." I climbed the stairs. They were temporary. Plywood over metal frames, and they creaked with every step. The second floor was partially finished. Some walls were up, others were just framing. Rolls of insulation sat in the corner. A table saw dominated the center of the space. Kyle was standing near the windows, phone to his ear, back to me. "Brian, I'm telling you, we're fine. Stop worrying." "Yeah, okay. I'll send you the updated timeline tonight." He hung up and turned around. Saw me, froze. "David." "Kyle." He recovered quickly, slipped his phone into his pocket and crossed his arms. "What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to see where you spend your time. Nice place." "It's private property." "So is my apartment. Didn't stop you from making yourself comfortable." His jaw tightened. "I think you should leave." "I think we should talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "Sure we do. We have Melissa in common. That's something." "Melissa and I are involved, I know. She told me. 2 months, right?" He didn't answer. I walked farther into the space, looking around. "This is a big project. Lot of money, lot of risk." "What's your point?" "My point is, you seem like a guy who doesn't like complications." "I'm not following." "Melissa's a complication. She's still married, still tied to me legally and financially. That makes things messy. We're handling it." "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're dating a woman who's in the middle of a divorce. That's going to drag out, get expensive, get ugly." "Why do you care?" "I don't, but I thought you might." He studied me carefully. "What do you want?" "Nothing. Just wanted to introduce myself properly. Make sure we're both clear on the situation." "We're clear." "Good. Because here's the thing, Kyle. I'm not interested in fighting over Melissa. If she wants to be with you, fine. But I'm also not interested in making things easy for you." "Meaning?" "Meaning I could drag this divorce out for years if I wanted. Contest every asset. Make her jump through hoops for every signature. Turn it into a nightmare that follows you both around." His face darkened. "You're threatening me." "I'm stating facts. Divorces can be quick and clean, or they can be long and messy. Which one it is depends on how reasonable everyone is." "What do you want?" he asked again. "Sign the papers. Convince Melissa to sign the papers. No contests, no negotiations, no delays. We end this fast and clean, and everyone moves on." "And if we don't?" "Then I guess you'll find out how patient I can be." He took a step toward me. "You think you can intimidate me?" "I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm trying to help you understand the situation. The situation is, you're bitter because your wife found someone better." I smiled. Couldn't help it. "Is that what she told you? That you're better?" "She didn't have to tell me. It's obvious." "Right. Because you're successful. You're confident. You've got this big project and this nice truck and this whole entrepreneur thing going." "Exactly. Except you're 3 months behind schedule on this warehouse. Your last flip sold for $80,000 under asking, and you just spent 20 minutes on the phone convincing your partner not to panic." His expression shifted. "How do you?" "Public records, social media, basic research. You're not as successful as you want people to think, Kyle. You're stretched thin. And the last thing you need is a messy divorce creating more problems. Get out. I'm just being honest. I said get out. I held up my hands. Fine, I'm leaving. But think about what I said. Fast and clean, or long and messy. Your choice. I walked back toward the stairs. Stopped halfway down. Oh, and Kyle? That electrical issue you mentioned on the phone? You might want to get that checked by a licensed inspector. Old buildings like this, lots of code violations waiting to happen. Would be a shame if someone reported concerns. His face went pale. You wouldn't? Probably not. But who knows? I'm bitter, right? Bitter people do unpredictable things. I left before he could respond. Got in my truck and drove back to my apartment, adrenaline pumping through my veins. It wasn't much, just a conversation, a few carefully placed words, but it was enough. Kyle now knew I wasn't going to disappear quietly. He knew I had information about his business. And most importantly, he knew that every day this divorce dragged on was another day of uncertainty for him. Men like Kyle hated uncertainty. They liked control, clean outcomes, problems that could be solved with money or charm or both. I'd just turned myself into a problem that couldn't be solved easily. My phone rang. Melissa, I answered. Yeah? Did you go see Kyle? Her voice was frantic. I did. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to meet the man my wife was seeing behind my back. David, you can't just what? Talk to him? Why not? He talked to you for 2 months while you were married to me. He's upset. He thinks you threatened him. I didn't threaten him. I stated facts. You told him you'd report his construction project? I said I might. There's a difference. You're being petty. I'm being clear. Sign the papers, Mel. End this fast, or I'll make sure it's as slow and painful as legally possible. You're not like this. Yeah, I am. You just never pushed me far enough to find out. I hung up. 5 minutes later, James called. What did you do? He asked. Who told you I did something? Melissa just called me. She's freaking out. Says you confronted her boyfriend. Boyfriend? Is that what we're calling him? David, I went to talk to him, that's all. Did you threaten him? Define threaten. Seriously. I told him the truth. That's not threatening. James sighed. What's the end game here, man? Make them uncomfortable. Make them realize that actions have consequences. Make them sign the papers and get out of my life. And then what? Then I move on. You sure about that? Completely. He was quiet for a moment. Just be careful. You're playing with fire. I know what I'm doing. That's what worries me. We hung up, and I sat on the futon with Winston. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Kyle. We need to talk in person. Tomorrow. I smiled. Hook, line, and sinker. I typed back, O'Malley's Bar. Noon, you buy. His response? Fine. I set my phone down and scratched Winston's ears. Round 2, I told him. And this time, I'm setting the terms. Winston wagged his tail. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink, the kind of sunset that looked like a painting. I thought about Melissa in the apartment, panicking because her boyfriend was upset. I thought about Kyle in his warehouse, realizing he'd underestimated me. I thought about the divorce papers still sitting on that coffee table, unsigned. And I smiled, because for the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was acting, and that made all the difference. O'Malley's was the kind of bar that smelled like old wood and spilled drinks. Dark booths, neon signs advertising brands that hadn't been popular since the 80s, a jukebox in the corner playing something country and depressing. I got there at 11:45, ordered a coffee because day drinking wasn't my style, and took a booth in the back where I could see the door. Kyle showed up at 12:03. He spotted me immediately, walked over with his hands in his pockets, trying to look casual and failing. David. Kyle, have a seat. He slid into the booth across from me. A waitress appeared, the same one who'd served me coffee, and Kyle ordered a drink. Something with whiskey. Dutch courage, probably. So, he said when the waitress left, what do you want? I told you. I want this divorce finalized, fast and clean. That's between you and Melissa. Except you're in the middle of it now. You made yourself part of this when you started seeing a married woman. She told me the marriage was over. Did she? Or did she tell you what you wanted to hear? He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I didn't come here to argue. Good, neither did I. I came here to make things simple. The waitress brought his drink. He He took a long sip before answering. What does simple look like? Melissa signs the papers. We split everything 50-50. No contests, no delays. The whole thing is done in 6 weeks. And if that doesn't happen, then I make your life complicated. You already threatened my construction project. I didn't threaten anything. I pointed out that old buildings sometimes have code violations. That's just a fact. You said you'd report it. I said I might. Depends on how motivated I am. This is extortion. Leaned forward. No. Extortion is demanding money or favors. I'm demanding nothing except what's already rightfully mine. A divorce from a woman who clearly wants to be with someone else. You should want this too. Why? Because right now, Melissa is stuck. She's legally tied to me. Financially tied to me. She can't make a clean start with you until she's done with me. And every day this drags on is another day she's divided. Another day you're dating someone else's wife. He stared into his glass. She says you're being vindictive. I'm being practical. There's a difference. You didn't have to come to my job site. You didn't have to sleep with my wife. Yet here we are. The jukebox switched songs. Something about heartbreak and whiskey. On brand. What if she doesn't want to sign? Kyle asked. Then I'll make sure the process takes as long as legally possible. I'll contest every asset. I'll demand mediation. I'll request financial disclosures. I'll turn this into a bureaucratic nightmare that costs both of us thousands in legal fees and takes years to resolve. You'd do that just to spite her? I'd do that to make a point. Actions have consequences. She wanted more. She got more. More complications, more stress, more mess. Kyle finished his drink and signaled for another. You're really angry. Wouldn't you be? I guess. No, you wouldn't guess. You'd know. Imagine someone you trusted for 7 years systematically lied to you for months. Imagine them making you feel like you were the problem when they were the one breaking promises. Imagine them telling you that you didn't deserve a Christmas present after you refused to let them cheat with permission. He didn't answer. That's what Melissa did, I continued. So yeah, I'm angry. But I'm also practical. I don't want revenge. I don't want to ruin anyone's life. I just want what's fair. And what's fair is a clean break. The waitress brought his second drink. He wrapped both hands around it like it might escape. What if I convince her to sign? He asked quietly. Then we're done. You get Melissa without the baggage. I get my freedom. Everyone moves forward. And the construction project? What construction project? He looked up. You're serious. As long as the divorce goes smoothly, I have no reason to care about your building or your business or anything else. You become irrelevant to me. Just like that? Just like that? He took another drink. Longer this time. When he set the glass down, it was half empty. She's not going to like this, he said. She doesn't have to like it. She just has to do it. You're putting me in the middle. You put yourself in the middle when you started this relationship. He rubbed his face with both hands. Looked tired suddenly. Older than he probably was. How do I know you'll actually leave us alone? He asked. You don't. But consider this. If I wanted to cause real problems, I'd already be doing it. I'd be calling inspectors, contacting your partner Brian, spreading stories about your business practices. I'm not doing any of that. I'm sitting here having a conversation. A conversation where you're blackmailing me. A conversation where I'm explaining incentives. There's a difference. He finished his second drink, stared at the empty glass like it might have answers. I'll talk to her, he said finally. Good. But I'm not promising anything. I'm not asking for promises, just action. He stood up, pulled out his wallet, and threw 2 20s on the table. For the drinks. You only had 2. Keep the change, for your trouble. He walked out without another word. I sat there for a few more minutes, finishing my coffee. The waitress came by to clear Kyle's glasses. Lovers quarrel? She asked with a knowing smile. Something like that. Hope it works out for you, hun. Me too. I left a tip and headed home. My phone buzzed in the truck. Text from Melissa. Kyle said you met with him. What did you say? I typed back. Ask him. David, please. Just tell me what you want. I want you to sign the papers. That's all I've ever wanted. We need to talk about the apartment lease and the joint account. And sign the papers first, then we'll talk about logistics. This is so unfair. I stared at that message. Unfair. She'd been using that word a lot lately. You know what's unfair? Finding out my wife was cheating on me while asking me to open our marriage. That's unfair. Signing a piece of paper is just paperwork. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. I drove home and spent the rest of the afternoon doing absolutely nothing, watched bad TV, played with Winston, made a sandwich, lived my life like none of this mattered, because in a weird way, it didn't. The marriage was over. That part was decided. Everything else was just details. My phone rang around 5, unknown number. Hello? David Cross? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Speaking. This is Jennifer Morrison from Morrison and Associates. I'm representing Melissa Cross in her divorce proceedings. So she'd lawyered up. I'd been expecting this. Okay. I'm calling to discuss the terms of the proposed settlement. My client has some concerns about the division of assets. What concerns? She believes a 50-50 split is inequitable, given that she contributed more to the household income over the course of the marriage. I almost laughed. She contributed more? According to her records, yes. Her salary was consistently higher than yours. By about $5,000 a year, and I was the one who paid for groceries, utilities, and most of the household expenses. I also paid off her student loans 3 years ago. Want to factor that in? A pause. I'm not aware of any loan repayment. Check her records again. $18,000. I have the bank statements. I'll need copies of those statements. Sure, along with receipts for every household expense I covered while she was putting her higher income into her personal savings account. Another pause. Longer this time. My client also has concerns about the dog. Winston is mine, non-negotiable. Legally, pets are considered property. Then consider me willing to fight for my property, in court, with witnesses testifying about who actually took care of him. Mr. Cross, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm just clear on what I want. 50-50 split of actual marital assets. I keep the dog. She keeps whatever she's been hiding in her personal accounts. We're done in 6 weeks. That's my offer. And if my client disagrees, then we go to court. I contest everything. We drag this out for a year, maybe 2. Legal fees pile up, nobody wins. Or she signs the papers and we're both free by Valentine's Day. Her choice. I'll convey your position to my client. You do that. I hung up. 10 seconds later, James called. You hired a lawyer? He asked. Not yet. Why? Because Melissa's lawyer just called me asking about your financial situation. What did you tell her? Nothing. I said I don't discuss my friend's finances. But David, if Melissa has a lawyer, you need one too. I know. So get one. Today. I will. I'm serious. She's building a case. You need to build one too. I've got documentation of everything. Bank statements, receipts, emails, I'm covered. Documentation isn't enough. You need someone who knows how to use it. He was right. I'd been operating on principle and momentum. But this was getting real. Legal. Complicated. Fine, I said. I'll find someone tomorrow. Good. And David? Yeah. Don't meet with Kyle or Melissa or anyone else without your lawyer present. You're giving them ammunition? Noted. We hung up, and I opened my laptop, searched for divorce lawyers in my area, found 3 with good reviews, sent inquiry emails to all of them. By 6 p.m., 2 had responded. One wanted $5,000 up front. The other wanted $3,000. Both offered free consultations. I scheduled consultations for Monday. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Brian Foster, Kyle's business partner. We need to talk. I stared at that message. Brian Foster, the money behind Kyle's operation. How did he get my number? I typed back. About what? About you harassing my partner and threatening our business. I haven't threatened anything. Kyle says differently. If you continue this behavior, we'll pursue legal action. For what? Having a conversation, for extortion and intimidation. I set my phone down, thought for a minute, then picked it back up. Tell Kyle to tell Melissa to sign the divorce papers. Then I'll have no reason to think about your business at all. This is inappropriate. So is sleeping with married women. But here we are. No response. I put my phone on the charger and made dinner. Real dinner this time. Chicken breast, rice, vegetables. Something my dad used to make when my mom was working late. Winston sat at my feet, hoping for scraps. I gave him a small piece of chicken. He wagged his tail appreciatively. We're stirring the pot, I told him, making people uncomfortable. That's good. Uncomfortable people make mistakes. Winston tilted his head. Or maybe I'm just being petty. Hard to tell sometimes. My phone rang. Melissa again? I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What? My lawyer says you're being unreasonable. Her voice was strained, tired. Your lawyer thinks asking for a fair split is unreasonable? She says you're trying to intimidate me through Kyle. I'm trying to get you to sign the papers. If Kyle's caught in the middle, that's his problem. David, please, can we talk? In person? Without lawyers or threats or any of this? What's there to talk about? Everything. Us. What happened? What went wrong? I know what went wrong. You cheated on me for 2 months, then asked permission retroactively. That's what went wrong. It's more complicated than that. It's really not. You're not even trying to understand. Understand what? That you wanted something I couldn't give you, so you took it anyway? I understand that perfectly. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. And now you're trying to make this divorce as difficult as possible instead of just letting us both move on. Because I don't want to move on. I want to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Mel. It's broken. Has been for a while. We just didn't want to admit it. That's not true? Yeah, it is. You didn't fall into Kyle's arms overnight. You were unhappy. You wanted out. You just didn't want to be the one to pull the trigger. So you did it for me? I did it for both of us. Silence. Long and heavy. Sign the papers, I said quietly. Stop fighting this. Let us both be free. And if I do? Then what? Then we're done. You get your fresh start with Kyle. I get mine alone. We never have to talk again. Is that really what you want? It's what we both need. More silence. I'll think about it, she said finally. Don't think too long. My patience has limits. I hung up before she could respond. Sat on the futon with Winston and wondered if I was doing the right thing. The smart thing? Absolutely. The strategic thing? Definitely. But the right thing? I wasn't sure anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't go back. Couldn't unknow what I knew. Couldn't unfeel what I felt. The marriage was over. Now I just needed everyone else to accept it. Monday morning, I met with a lawyer named Patricia Hendricks. Her office was small but professional, with degrees on the wall and family photos on the desk. She was probably in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair and glasses that made her look like a librarian. Mr. Cross, she said, shaking my hand. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for seeing me on short notice. We sat down, and I laid out the whole situation. The marriage, Melissa's request to open things up, my refusal, the Christmas comment, the divorce filing, Kyle, the 2-month affair, the lawyer, all of it. Patricia took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me over her glasses. This is actually pretty straightforward, she said. No kids, no major assets, no complicating factors. Should be simple. Should be? Your wife's lawyer is going to try to make it complicated. That's what they do. They'll argue about income disparity, contribution percentages, emotional distress. It's all standard divorce theater. What do I do about it? You document everything. Bank statements, receipts, communications. You build a paper trail that shows exactly what you contributed to the marriage. And you let me handle the negotiations. What about Kyle? What about him? He's involved. Can we use that? Patricia leaned back in her chair. Indiana is a no-fault divorce state, meaning we don't need to prove wrongdoing to get a divorce. The affair is irrelevant legally. So it doesn't matter that she cheated? In terms of getting divorced? No. In terms of asset division? Maybe if we can show financial misconduct. But generally, no. That doesn't seem fair. Divorce law rarely does. But the good news is you don't need to prove infidelity to get what you want. You just need to prove that a 50-50 split is equitable, and based on what you've told me, it is. She explained the process. File a response to Melissa's inevitable counter-petition, request financial discovery, negotiate terms. If Melissa refused to settle, we'd go to mediation. If mediation failed, we'd go to trial. How long does this usually take? I asked. If everyone cooperates, 3 to 6 months. If they fight, could be a year or more. And what's this going to cost me? My retainer is $3,000. After that, it's $250 an hour. Most divorces like this run between $5,000 and $10,000 total, depending on how contentious things get. I thought about the money in my savings account. $12,000. This would eat up most of it, but it was worth it. Let's do it, I said. Patricia smiled. Good. I'll draft a response to her petition and send it to her lawyer. In the meantime, don't communicate with Melissa or Kyle directly. Everything goes through me now. What if they contact me? Refer them to me. Don't engage. Got it. We shook hands, and I left feeling lighter, like I'd just hired someone to carry half my burden. On the drive back to my apartment, my phone rang. Kyle. I almost didn't answer, but then I remembered. Everything goes through Patricia now. Yeah? We need to talk. Kyle's voice was tight, stressed. I have a lawyer now. Talk to her. This isn't about the divorce. This is about you. What about me? You called the city inspector's office. I hadn't, but I stayed quiet. Someone reported concerns about the electrical work at the warehouse, Kyle continued. Anonymous tip. Inspectors are coming tomorrow. Okay. Was it you? I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, David. I'm not lying. I didn't call anyone. Then who did? How should I know? Old buildings get reported all the time. Neighbors, competitors, disgruntled contractors. Take your pick. This is too convenient. Convenient for who? I don't benefit from your project getting delayed. You benefit from making my life difficult. Actually, I don't. My life gets easier when Melissa signs those papers, and I never have to think about either of you again. Your construction problems are your own. If I find out you're behind this, you'll what? Sue me? For calling in a tip I didn't make? Good luck with that. He hung up. I sat in my truck outside my apartment and thought about that conversation. Someone had called the inspectors. But it wasn't me. Who then? I pulled out my phone and searched warehouse river lofts electrical problems. Found a local forum where people discussed construction projects in the area. Someone had posted 3 days ago. Anyone know what's going on with the river lofts project? Saw work crews leaving early. Heard rumors about budget issues. Responses varied. Some said the project was fine. Others speculated about delays. One person, username local electrician, had commented, "Drove by there last week. Their electrical setup looks sketchy. Hope they got proper permits." I clicked on local electrician's profile. No real information, just a generic account. But it gave me an idea. I created a throwaway email account. Sent a message to the city inspector's office. I'm concerned about construction safety at the River Lofts warehouse project on 4th Street. The electrical work appears to be non-compliant with code. Please investigate. I didn't sign it. Just sent it from the throwaway account and deleted everything. If Kyle thought I'd called before, he wasn't wrong. I'd just been delayed in following through. My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. Melissa's lawyer sent over her counter petition. She's requesting 60% of marital assets, citing higher income contribution. She also wants the apartment and half your retirement account. I called Patricia immediately. 60%? I said when she answered. Standard opening position. They're negotiating high so they can come down and still get more than 50-50. That's ridiculous. That's divorce law, don't worry. We'll file our response requesting that you keep your retirement account entirely, plus the dog, plus reimbursement for her student loans. We'll meet somewhere in the middle. What about the apartment? The lease is in both names. Either you both stay and keep paying, or one of you buys out the other, or you let it go and both move out. What do you want? I don't want it. She can have it. That'll work in our favor. Shows you're being reasonable. When does all this happen? I'll file our response tomorrow. Then we wait for her lawyer to respond. Could be a few days, could be a few weeks. And I just sit here and wait? You live your life. Go to work. Pay your bills. Document everything. Let me handle the legal stuff. We hung up, and I went inside. Winston greeted me like I'd been gone for days. I fed him, took him for a walk, then made myself lunch. My phone rang again. James. How'd it go with the lawyer? He asked. Good. She's handling everything now. That's smart. What's the timeline? Few months if Melissa cooperates. Longer if she doesn't. She's going to fight. Probably. You ready for that? I don't have a choice. Sure you do. You could talk to her, work something out privately, save the legal fees. And risk her backing out? No thanks. This needs to be official. James sighed. You're really committed to this. Why wouldn't I be? Because 7 years is a long time, and sometimes people do stupid things when they're scared or confused. Doesn't mean the whole relationship was worthless. Are you defending her? I'm defending the version of her you used to love, the one who existed before all this. That version doesn't exist anymore, if she ever did. Maybe, or maybe she's just as lost as you are. I didn't answer. Look, James continued, I'm not saying forgive her. I'm just saying maybe there's a version of this that doesn't end with lawyers and courtrooms and everyone hating each other. What version is that? The one where you both admit this didn't work and part ways without trying to destroy each other. I'm not trying to destroy her. I'm trying to get free. By pressuring her boyfriend and threatening his business. I'm not threatening his business. The city is inspecting his building because it might have code violations. That's basic public safety. You know what I mean. Yeah, I do, and I appreciate your concern, but I'm doing this my way. James was quiet for a moment. All right, just don't lose yourself in this, man. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it doesn't fix anything. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for closure. If you say so. We hung up, and I sat with his words. Was I looking for revenge? Maybe. But if I was, did that make me wrong? Melissa had lied to me for months. She'd manipulated the situation to make me feel like the problem. She'd told me I didn't deserve a Christmas gift, then acted shocked when I gave her the ultimate gift of freedom. So yeah, maybe I was being vindictive. Maybe I was pushing harder than necessary. But after 3 weeks of being made to feel unreasonable, after months of being lied to, after years of apparently not being enough, maybe a little vindictiveness was justified? My phone buzzed. Email notification from the city inspector's office. Thank you for your concern regarding the River Lofts project. An inspector has been dispatched to review the electrical work. Reference number 248831. I smiled. Kyle was about to have a very bad week, and somehow that felt exactly right. The inspection didn't shut down Kyle's project, but it did delay it. According to a post on that construction forum, inspectors had found 3 code violations. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to require fixes before work could continue. Estimated delay, 2 weeks, which meant 2 weeks of paying his crew to not work, 2 weeks of burning through his budget, 2 weeks of explaining to his partner Brian why things were taking longer than promised. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat, just noted it and moved on. My focus was the divorce. Patricia had filed our counter petition. Melissa's lawyer had responded with modifications. We were now in the negotiation phase, trading offers like we were haggling over a used car. Current status: Melissa wanted 55% of assets. I wanted 50% plus reimbursement for her student loans. She wanted the apartment. I wanted the dog and my retirement account untouched. Neither side was budging. This might go to mediation, Patricia told me over the phone, which means sitting in a room with Melissa and both lawyers and working through everything line by line. How long does that take? Depends. Could be a few hours, could be all day. When? Probably next month. I'll send you the details once we schedule it. In the meantime, I did exactly what Patricia said. Lived my life, work, gym, groceries, cooking, walking Winston, watching bad TV, repeat, simple, predictable, boring. And honestly, it felt good. No drama, no arguments, no navigating someone else's emotions or expectations. Just me, my dog, and a routine that made sense. 2 weeks into this new rhythm, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this David Cross? A man's voice, older, formal. Who's asking? My name is Brian Foster. We spoke briefly via text. Kyle's partner, the money guy. What can I do for you, Brian? I'd like to meet with you, in person, discuss this situation. What situation? The one involving my business partner and your ex-wife. She's not my ex-wife yet, and I don't see what your business partner's personal life has to do with me. It has everything to do with you. You've been interfering. I've been living my life. If that interferes with Kyle's plans, that's not my problem. The inspection at our warehouse was no coincidence. I agree. Old buildings with questionable electrical work tend to attract attention. Mr. Cross, I'm trying to be professional here. So am I. What do you want, Brian? A pause. Then, I want to offer you a settlement. That caught my attention. A settlement for what? For your cooperation. If you agree to stop interfering with our project and sign a non-disclosure agreement, I'll pay you $20,000. I almost laughed. You're trying to pay me off? I'm trying to resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. $20,000? Yes. To stop interfering with your project, which I'm not interfering with, and sign something saying I won't talk about what exactly. About Kyle's relationship with Melissa, about the circumstances of your divorce, about any concerns you may have raised regarding our construction project. So you want to buy my silence? I want to buy peace of mind. I leaned back on the futon, processing this. Brian Foster, successful investor and business partner, was offering me $20,000 to go away quietly, which meant Kyle had told him everything. About the affair, about my visits, about the pressure I'd been applying. And Brian was worried. Not about the inspection, that was already resolved. He was worried about what else I might do, what other problems I might cause. How much does Kyle stand to lose if this project fails? I asked. That's not relevant. Humor me, Brian sighed. Kyle has $800,000 invested, between his own capital and borrowed funds. If the project fails, he's financially ruined. And you? I can absorb my losses. Kyle cannot. So you're protecting your partner. I'm protecting my investment and trying to prevent unnecessary complications. By paying me off. By offering you compensation for your time and discretion. I thought about it. $20,000. Enough to cover my legal fees with plenty left over. Enough to furnish my apartment properly. Enough to build a real safety net. All I had to do was sign a paper saying I'd leave them alone and never talk about any of this. It was tempting, but something felt off. Why now? I asked. Why not 2 weeks ago? Because 2 weeks ago I thought this would resolve itself. Now I see that it won't. What changed? Silence. Brian, what changed? Kyle is having doubts, he said finally. About Melissa. About whether this relationship is worth the complications it's creating. Now that was interesting. He wants out? He wants clarity. He thought this would be simple, dating a woman going through a divorce, but you've made it complicated. The legal issues, the business delays, the constant pressure. He's reconsidering whether it's worth it. And you want me to disappear so he doesn't bail on her and screw up your business relationship. Something like that. What happens if I say no? Then we continue as we are, and everyone loses. Except I'm not losing anything. My divorce is proceeding. My life is moving forward. The only people with problems here are you and Kyle. Fair point. But consider this. The longer your divorce drags on, the more expensive it gets. Lawyers aren't cheap, and Melissa's lawyer is already pushing for mediation, which means more fees, more delays, more headaches. So $20,000 buys you a clean exit. Sign the NDA, let Kyle and Melissa figure out their own relationship, walk away with cash in your pocket and this whole mess behind you. It was a good pitch. Professional, logical, appealing, but it missed one crucial point. I don't want the money, Brian. Everyone wants money. Not more than I want to make sure Melissa understands that actions have consequences. That's petty. Maybe, but it's honest. He exhaled slowly. What do you want then? I already told you. I want Melissa to sign the divorce papers. I want a fair settlement. I want to never think about her or Kyle again. That's it. And if I can make that happen, then you don't need to pay me anything. You'd accept that? Just the divorce finalized quickly? That's all I've ever wanted. Another pause. I could almost hear him calculating, weighing options. I'll talk to Kyle, he said finally. See if he can convince Melissa to settle. You do that. But if this doesn't work, if she refuses, you need to back off. Stop the inspections, stop the pressure, stop whatever you're doing to complicate things. I'm not doing anything, Brian, but I'll tell you what. You get Melissa to sign those papers within 2 weeks, and I promise you'll never hear from me again. 2 weeks? That's plenty of time. Either she wants to be with Kyle or she doesn't. Either she's ready to move on or she's not. 2 weeks gives her time to decide. And if she doesn't, then I guess we're all in this for the long haul. He made a sound that might have been agreement or frustration. I'll be in touch. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, thinking about that conversation. Brian Foster had just offered me $20,000 to go away, which meant I was having a bigger impact than I'd realized. Kyle was having doubts. The project was stressing him out. The relationship with Melissa was becoming more trouble than it was worth. Everything was working exactly as I'd hoped, but there was something else. Something Brian had said that stuck with me. Kyle is having doubts about Melissa. Not about the relationship, about Melissa specifically. What did that mean? I opened my laptop and searched for Kyle's social media again. His Facebook was still public. I scrolled through recent posts. Most were about the warehouse project. Progress photos, inspirational quotes, generic business content. But there was one post from 3 days ago that caught my attention. Sometimes you invest in something expecting one outcome and get something completely different. Learning to pivot is part of growth. It was vague, could have been about anything, but the timing was interesting. 3 days ago was right after the inspection had shut down his work. Right after I'd met with Brian. Right after Kyle started realizing that dating Melissa came with complications. I scrolled further. Found a post from a week before Melissa and I separated. A photo of Kyle at some event, champagne glass in hand, big smile, Caption, celebrating new beginnings and exciting possibilities. In the background of the photo, barely visible, was Melissa, standing close to him, smiling. They weren't just dating. They were already together, publicly, at events, while she was still married to me, while she was telling me I was being unreasonable for not wanting to open our marriage. I'd known she was seeing him, but seeing the photo evidence, seeing them together, happy, celebrating, it hit different. Not because I still loved her. I didn't. That had burned out somewhere around the time she told me I didn't deserve a Christmas gift. But because it confirmed what I'd suspected all along. This wasn't about Melissa wanting more. This was about Melissa already having more and wanting permission to keep it. She'd never intended to work on our marriage. She'd already checked out. Kyle was her exit strategy, and the open marriage request was her attempt to have her cake and eat it too. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Winston jumped onto the futon next to me, sensing my mood. I scratched behind his ears. "You know what?" I told him. "I don't think Kyle's going to convince Melissa to sign anything." Winston tilted his head. "Because she doesn't want to sign. She wants me to be the bad guy. She wants to drag this out so she can tell everyone I'm being difficult. That way, when it finally ends, she's the victim and I'm the villain." Winston licked my hand. "But here's the thing. I don't care what people think. I care what happens. And what's going to happen is this divorce is going to finalize on my terms, whether she likes it or not." My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. "Melissa's lawyer just sent over another counteroffer. She's down to 52% of assets, but she's still demanding the apartment and half your retirement." I typed back, "Tell her no. 50-50, she gets the apartment, I keep my retirement and the dog. Final offer." Patricia. "She's not going to accept that. Then we go to mediation. I'm done negotiating." Patricia. "Understood. I'll inform her lawyer." I put my phone down and looked around my small apartment. Futon against the wall, kitchen table in the corner, lamp on the floor, TV on a cardboard box. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and that was worth more than any settlement. My phone rang. "Melissa," I answered. "Yeah? Did you tell your lawyer no?" Her voice was sharp, angry. "I did." "David, you're being ridiculous. I'm offering you a compromise." "No, you're offering me less than what's fair and calling it a compromise. I earned more money during our marriage, and I paid off your student loans, and covered most of the household expenses, and did all the cooking and cleaning while you worked late. Want to put a dollar amount on that?" "That's not the same thing." "You're right, it's not, because I didn't keep a ledger. I didn't calculate every contribution. I just did what needed to be done because we were partners. But apparently you were keeping score the whole time. I just want what's fair. Then accept the 50-50 split. Take the apartment. Move on with Kyle. Let us both be free." "Kyle has nothing to do with this." "Kyle has everything to do with this. He's the reason you wanted out. He's the reason you asked to open our marriage. He's the reason you're fighting me on every detail now, because you want to come out ahead so you can start your new life without any baggage." "That's not—" "Mel, I'm done. My final offer is 50-50. You get the apartment, I keep my retirement, and Winston. Take it or leave it." "And if I leave it?" "Then we go to mediation. And if that doesn't work, we go to trial. And I will make absolutely certain that everyone knows exactly why this marriage ended, including Kyle." Silence. "Are you threatening me?" she asked quietly. "I'm telling you the consequences of your choices. You can settle this now and move on, or you can fight me and make everything public. Your call." "You wouldn't. Try me." She hung up. I sat there, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. That was it. The line in the sand. Either she'd sign or she wouldn't. Either this would end quickly or it would get ugly. But I was ready either way. Winston nudged my hand with his nose. I looked down at him. "Did I just go too far?" I asked. He wagged his tail. "Yeah, you're right. There is no too far. Not anymore." My phone buzzed. Text from James. "Melissa just called me crying." "What did you say to her?" I typed back, "The truth." Which was that if she doesn't settle, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened, including Kyle. David, that's... what? Harsh. So was cheating on me for 2 months. So was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. So was telling me I didn't deserve a Christmas gift. I'm just returning the favor. James didn't respond. I put my phone on airplane mode and went to bed. Tomorrow, Melissa would either sign the papers or she wouldn't. Tomorrow, this would either end or escalate. But tonight, I slept better than I had in months. Because for the first time since this started, I was completely in control. and that felt better than any settlement ever could. 3 days after my ultimatum, Melissa signed the papers. Not willingly, not graciously, but she signed them. Patricia called me with the news. It's done. 50-50 split. She keeps the apartment, you keep your retirement account in Winston. We'll finalize everything at the courthouse next week. That was fast. Her lawyer called this morning, said her client wanted to move forward immediately. No mediation, no trial, just acceptance. What changed? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. A win is a win. She was right, but I wanted to know what had pushed Melissa over the edge. The answers started coming together when I checked my email that afternoon. Mixed in with work messages and spam was something unexpected, a forwarded email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, FYI, thought you should see this. I opened it. Inside was a screenshot of a text conversation between two people. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. Kyle and Brian. Their text exchange from 2 days ago. Brian, we need to talk about the Melissa situation. Kyle, what about it? Brian, it's affecting the project. Your focus is split. We're already behind and over budget. This relationship is becoming a liability. Kyle, I can handle it. Brian, can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're dating a woman in the middle of a messy divorce. Her ex-husband is causing problems, and now we have inspection delays. Connect the dots, Kyle. Kyle, what are you saying? Brian, I'm saying maybe it's time to cut your losses. End things with her. Focus on what actually matters. Finishing this project before we lose everything. Kyle, you want me to break up with her because of business? Brian, I want you to make smart decisions, and staying with her isn't smart. The conversation continued for several more messages, but the point was clear. Brian had been pressuring Kyle to end things with Melissa, for business reasons. I stared at the forwarded email. Who sent this? And how did they get access to Kyle and Brian's private text messages? Then I noticed the original sender's email address. Temporary account 4782@mailservice.com. Another anonymous player in this game. Before I could process it further, Kyle called me. We need to talk, he said. No preamble, no pleasantries. I thought we were done talking. This is important. Meet me at the warehouse, 1 hour. Why would I do that? Because you'll want to hear this, and because if you don't, I'm coming to your apartment. Your choice. The threat was subtle but clear. Fine, 1 hour, but this is the last time. Agreed. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there debating whether to go. Could be a trap. Could be Kyle trying to start something physical. Could be a waste of time. But the veiled threat about coming to my apartment made the decision for me. Better to meet on neutral ground. I texted James. Meeting Kyle at Riverloft's warehouse in an hour. If you don't hear from me by 5 p.m., something went wrong. His response came immediately. Are you insane? Don't go alone. I'll be fine. Just a precaution. I'm coming with you. No, stay by your phone. That's all I need. I drove to the warehouse. Kyle's truck was parked out front, along with a sedan I recognized as Brian's. Both of them were waiting inside on the first floor, standing near a makeshift table covered in blueprints and permits. The space looked different than last time I'd been here. More finished, but also more stressed. Tools were scattered everywhere, and there was an air of controlled chaos. David, Brian said, extending his hand. This time I shook it. Brian. Kyle. Kyle didn't offer his hand, just crossed his arms and leaned against the table. His jaw was tight, and he had dark circles under his eyes. The confident real estate flipper I'd met weeks ago looked worn down. Thanks for coming, Brian said. I know this is unusual. That's one word for it. We wanted to talk to you face to face, clear the air. About what? Brian glanced at Kyle, who looked away, then back at me. About Melissa, Brian said, and about ending this situation once and for all. The situation is already ending. She signed the divorce papers? Yes, because I convinced her to. That caught my attention. You convinced her? I explained that continuing to fight you was counterproductive, that it was affecting Kyle's focus and, by extension, our business, that the smart move was to settle quickly and move on. And she listened to you? Eventually, after Kyle reinforced the message. I looked at Kyle. You told her to sign? Kyle's expression darkened. I told her the truth, that this whole thing was getting out of hand, that I didn't sign up for a year-long legal battle, that maybe we should both take a step back and reevaluate. Reevaluate what? Whether this relationship is worth the complications. There it was, the doubt Brian had mentioned on the phone. Out loud now, confirmed. So you're breaking up with her, I said. I'm suggesting we slow down, get some space, figure out what we actually want instead of just reacting to circumstances. That's a long way of saying yes. Kyle pushed off the table, taking a step toward me. Look, I liked Melissa. I still do. But I didn't realize what I was getting into. The drama, the legal issues, the constant stress. It's too much. And you blame me for that. I blame the situation, which you definitely contributed to. By refusing to roll over and let her walk all over me? By making everything more difficult than it needed to be. I almost laughed. You're dating a married woman and I'm the one making things difficult? She told me the marriage was over. It wasn't, not until I ended it, which I did because she was seeing you. So yeah, maybe the situation is difficult, but I'm not the one who created it. You could have handled it quietly, Kyle said, his voice rising. Filed the papers, divided everything, moved on. But no, you had to come to my job site. You had to threaten my business. You had to turn this into some kind of revenge mission. I didn't threaten anything. I simply pointed out facts. And if those facts made you uncomfortable, maybe you should have thought about that before pursuing someone else's wife. I didn't pursue her. She came to me. The words hung in the air. Kyle realized what he'd said, and his face paled slightly. She came to you, I repeated slowly. Interesting, because she told me you two just connected at a networking event. Made it sound organic, natural. Kyle looked at Brian, who was watching this exchange with the expression of someone observing a train wreck. That's not... I meant, Kyle stammered. You meant exactly what you said. Melissa pursued you, which means this wasn't some accidental romance. She was actively looking for an exit strategy from our marriage, and you were convenient. Brian stepped between us, literally, physically positioning himself so we couldn't make eye contact. Gentlemen, he said calmly, we're not here to assign blame. We're here to move forward. What does moving forward look like? I asked. It looks like you accepting that Melissa signed the papers. It looks like Kyle and Melissa working out their relationship privately, without your involvement. And it looks like everyone going their separate ways without any more inspections or anonymous tips or pressure. I told you before, I didn't call in those inspections. But you would have, if you hadn't already. He had me there. Fine, I said. Melissa signed the papers. The divorce is proceeding. As far as I'm concerned, we're done. I have no reason to think about either of you ever again. Good, Brian said. That's what we wanted to hear. But, I continued, if Melissa tries to back out of the settlement, or if she suddenly decides she wants to renegotiate, or if her lawyer contacts my lawyer with new demands, all bets are off. She won't, Kyle said. I made sure of that. How? By telling her that if she keeps fighting you, we're done. Not taking a break. Done. I studied his face. He meant it. Kyle Patterson, confident real estate flipper and apparent homewrecker, had given Melissa an ultimatum. Sign the papers or lose him. And she'd chosen to sign. She must really like you, I said, or she really wants out of her marriage. Same thing, probably. Kyle pushed off the table. Are we good here? Can we all move on with our lives? As long as the divorce finalizes without issues, yeah, we're good. Then I guess this is goodbye. I guess so. We didn't shake hands. Didn't exchange pleasantries. Just nodded at each other like two people who'd reached a business agreement neither of them particularly liked. Brian walked me out to my truck. For what it's worth, he said, I understand why you did what you did. Do you? I've been divorced. Twice. Both times were messy. Both times I wanted to make sure the other person understood they couldn't just walk away without consequences. And did they? One did. The other didn't. Guess which divorce cost me more? I smiled slightly. The one who didn't understand. Exactly. You made Melissa understand. That's worth something? Is it? It is? Because now she knows she can't manipulate her way through life without people pushing back. That's a valuable lesson. Expensive lesson for everyone involved. The best lessons usually are. We shook hands and I drove away. On the way home, I called Patricia. It's David. Just wanted to confirm, Melissa's lawyer hasn't contacted you with any changes, right? Not a word. As far as I know, we're on track for finalization next week. Good. Keep me posted if anything changes. Will do. I hung up and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Relief, not happiness, not satisfaction, just relief that this was almost over. My phone buzzed. Text from Melissa. Can we talk? Please? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. to let the lawyers handle everything from here on out. But part of me was curious. What could she possibly want to say now? I called her. David. She sounded surprised that I'd actually called back. You wanted to talk? Yeah, I wanted to explain. Explain what? Everything. Why I did what I did, why I asked about opening the marriage, why I messed everything up. Melissa, please, just let me say this. I pulled into a parking lot and put the truck in park. Fine, I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. I was scared of getting older, of being stuck, of feeling like my life was just this predictable routine that would never change. And when I met Kyle, he represented something different, something exciting, something that made me feel young and alive again. So you cheated on me. I know how it sounds, and I know it was wrong, but I convinced myself that if I asked to open the marriage, it would somehow make it okay. Like if I got your permission, it wouldn't be cheating. Except you were already sleeping with him when you asked. A long pause. I could hear her breathing, ragged and uneven. Yes, she admitted finally. I was, for almost 2 months before I brought it up to you. 2 months of lying to my face every single day. I didn't think of it as lying. What else would you call it? You came home from being with him and slept next to me. You kissed me goodbye in the mornings before going to work where you text him. You sat across from me at dinner and made plans for our future while secretly planning an exit strategy. It wasn't an exit strategy. Yes, it was. You were testing the waters, seeing if you could have both. And when I said no, when I refused to play along with your fantasy, you punished me for it. 3 weeks of cold shoulders and passive-aggressive comments and that Christmas line about me not deserving a gift. She was crying harder now. I know I was cruel. I was angry that you wouldn't understand. Understand what? That you wanted to cheat with permission? That's not understanding, Mel. That's being a doormat. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Was it fair that I spent 3 weeks thinking I was being unreasonable? Was it fair that I discovered you'd already been with Kyle when you asked me to open the marriage? Was it fair that you made me feel like the villain in our marriage when you were the one breaking promises? Silence. I thought so, I continued. You don't get to talk about fair. I'm trying to apologize, she said quietly. Are you? Because it sounds more like you're trying to explain yourself, to make me understand why you did what you did. But I already understand, Mel. You were bored. You were scared. You met someone exciting. You made choices. And now you're dealing with consequences. Kyle broke up with me, she said suddenly. That stopped me. When? Last night. He said the situation was too complicated, that his business partner Brian was threatening to pull funding if he didn't get his act together, that I came with too much drama. I'm sorry. Are you? This is what you wanted. I wanted a divorce. What happened between you and Kyle? That's its own thing. Except you made it happen. You put so much pressure on him, on his business, on everything around us. You made being with me impossible. I made it honest, I corrected. Kyle thought he was getting a simple relationship with a woman leaving her marriage. Instead, he got reality. Divorce is messy. Consequences exist, and he wasn't strong enough to handle it. Neither was I, apparently. What do you mean? I mean, I couldn't handle you either. You're quiet. You're calm. The way you just left, filed papers, moved on. Like 7 years meant nothing. 7 years meant everything. That's why I left. Because I couldn't watch you destroy those 7 years while pretending you were improving them. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. You know what the worst part is? What? I actually convinced myself I loved him, that what we had was real, that it was worth all of this. Maybe it was real, just not strong enough to survive complications. Our marriage survived complications. Until it didn't. Until I ruined it, she corrected quietly. Let's be honest about what happened, David. I ruined us. I didn't argue. I signed the papers this morning, she continued. Told my lawyer to accept all your terms, all of them, because what was the point of fighting? You were right about everything, and I was too proud to admit it until I had nothing left. You have plenty left. You have the apartment, your job, your friends, your family. I have an empty apartment and a lot of people who are disappointed in me. That's not plenty. It's more than some people have. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to give you perspective. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you hate me? I looked out at the parking lot. A couple was loading groceries into their car, laughing about something, simple, easy, uncomplicated. "No," I said finally. "I don't hate you." "Really?" "Really. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm disappointed in choices you made, but I don't hate you. I hate myself enough for both of us. That's not productive. Neither was destroying my marriage, but I managed that just fine." Despite everything, I almost smiled. At least you're honest about it now. Too little, too late though, right? Maybe, but it's something. More silence. Comfortable this time. Like we'd finally said what needed saying. "I hope you find someone better," she said eventually. "I hope you figure out what you actually want before you hurt someone else trying to find it." That's harsh. That's honest. You spent months lying to me about what you wanted. Don't make that someone else's problem. "I won't," she said softly. "I learned my lesson." "Did you?" "Yeah. Actions have consequences. You made sure I understood that." "Good." "The divorce is Friday?" she asked. 10 a.m. "Will you look at me when it happens?" The question surprised me. "Does it matter?" "I guess not. I don't want the last image you have of me to be someone you couldn't even look at. I'll remember you as the woman who taught me what I won't accept in my next relationship. That's not nothing." "That's pretty damning." "That's realistic." She laughed weakly. Same old David, always so logical. Someone had to be. Yeah, someone did. We stayed on the line for another minute, neither of us speaking, just existing in the same moment one last time. "I should go," she said finally. "I have to finish packing, figure out what I'm keeping. Most of it was yours anyway." "I meant emotionally, not literally, but yeah, the furniture too. Take care of yourself, Melissa. You too, David. And thank you." "For what?" "For not being worse than you were. You could have made this a nightmare. Instead, you just made it clear." "That's all I wanted. Clarity." "Well, you got it. We both did." "Yeah, we did." "Goodbye, David." "Goodbye, Melissa." She hung up, sat in my truck in that parking lot, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just nothing. The woman I'd loved for 7 years had just apologized, admitted everything, and tried to explain her choices. And I felt nothing. Because she was right. She'd smashed what we had. And there was no putting it back together. I drove home, fed Winston, and made dinner. Pasta with marinara sauce. Simple. Easy. Exactly what I needed. My phone rang again. "James." "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah. Why?" "Because Melissa just called me sobbing. Said you were mean to her." I told her the truth. If that's mean, so be it. "What did you tell her?" "That she threw away our marriage for a guy who's already losing interest. That she doesn't get to use me as a backup plan, that we're done." "And you're okay with that?" "Completely." James was quiet for a moment. "You sound different." "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you're actually moving on instead of just pretending to." "Maybe I am." "Good. That's good, man." We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I spent the rest of the evening watching TV with Winston, cleaning the apartment and planning my week, work, gym, courthouse on Friday for the finalization, then whatever came next. For the first time in months, I was actually looking forward to the future. Not because I had big plans or exciting prospects, but because it was mine. Completely, utterly mine. And that was enough. Friday came faster than I expected. I woke up at 6 a.m. even though I didn't need to be at the courthouse until 10. Couldn't sleep. My mind kept running through scenarios, possibilities, last-minute complications that probably wouldn't happen but might. I made coffee, fed Winston, took him for a walk around the complex while the sun was still low and orange against the winter sky. Everything felt sharper somehow, more real, like the world had turned up its resolution just for today. Back in the apartment, I stood in front of my closet for longer than necessary. "What do you wear to end your marriage?" I settled on a navy blue suit I'd bought for job interviews years ago. Still fit, still looked decent. Formal enough to show respect for the process, casual enough to show I wasn't trying too hard. I tied my tie 3 times before getting it right. My hands were steady, but my mind wasn't. Not nervous exactly, just aware. This was it. The final chapter. The last page. Patricia had texted me at 8. "See you at 9:45 outside the courthouse. Don't be late." I wasn't going to be late. I was going to be early. Because being early meant control. meant being ready, meant not giving anyone the satisfaction of seeing me rush. I left my apartment at 9:15. The drive downtown took 20 minutes. I parked in a garage 2 blocks from the courthouse and walked the rest of the way. The morning was cold. February cold, the kind that makes your breath visible and your fingers numb even in your pockets. I watched people hurrying past, lawyers with briefcases, people in business casual heading to office buildings, a homeless man asking for change outside a coffee shop. Normal Friday morning for everyone else. End of an era for me. Patricia was waiting outside the courthouse steps at 9:40, exactly where she said she'd be. She was wearing a charcoal gray suit and carrying a leather briefcase that looked expensive, professional smile in place. "Ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. You look good, by the way. Serious but not desperate. That's the right tone." "Didn't know there was a tone for this." "There's always a tone. Come on, let's get through security." We walked inside. The courthouse was exactly what you'd expect. All marble floors and high ceilings and that specific echo that happens in government buildings. Like every sound is being judged. Security checkpoint. Empty pockets. Belt off. Shoes off. Walk through the metal detector. Gather belongings. Belt back on. "Third floor," Patricia said, leading the way to the elevators. The elevator was crowded. A woman in heels and a tight expression. An older man in a suit that had seen better days. 2 younger guys in jeans who looked like they were here for traffic court or something equally minor. Nobody talked. Everyone stared at the numbers above the door like they held answers to important questions. 3rd floor, family court. The hallway was lined with benches where people sat waiting. Some looked nervous, some looked angry. One couple was arguing in whispered hisses that weren't whispers at all. "Room 304, Patricia said, checking her phone. "We're early, that's good." We walked down the hall, and there she was, Melissa, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom, wearing a black dress that I didn't recognize, hair pulled back, no makeup, or at least not much. She looked smaller somehow, thinner, tired. Her lawyer was next to her, Jennifer Morrison, the woman who'd called me weeks ago. They were looking at papers together, Morrison pointing at something and explaining in a low voice. Melissa looked up, saw me, our eyes met. Family court. Room 304. Melissa was already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom with her lawyer. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked up when we approached. Our eyes met. I nodded. She nodded back. That was it. No words, no drama, just acknowledgement. Her lawyer, Jennifer Morrison, the woman who'd called me weeks ago, stood up and shook Patricia's hand. "Patricia." "Jennifer, shall we?" We all walked into the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Just a judge's bench, a few tables, some chairs for observers. Nobody else was there except us and the court reporter. The judge was a woman in her 60s with glasses and a no-nonsense expression. She reviewed the papers in front of her for what felt like an hour, but was probably 2 minutes. "Melissa Jane Cross and David Matthew Cross," she said finally. "You're here to finalize your dissolution of marriage, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," we said in unison. "I've reviewed your settlement agreement. Division of assets, division of debts, custody of the pet. Everything appears to be in order. Ms. Cross, do you agree to these terms?" Melissa stood. "Now, yes, Your Honor." "Mr. Cross?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Do either of you have any objections or changes you wish to make before I sign this decree?" "No, Your Honor," Melissa said. "No, Your Honor," I echoed. The judge picked up her pen, signed the decree with 3 quick strokes, stamped it with an official seal. "Your marriage is hereby dissolved. Effective immediately. You're both free to go." That was it. 7 years of marriage. 9 years together. Over in less than 10 minutes. We filed out of the courtroom. Melissa and her lawyer went one direction. Patricia and I went the other. "Congratulations," Patricia said in the elevator. "You're officially divorced." "Thanks for everything." "It was my pleasure. You were a good client. Clear about what you wanted. No waffling. Made my job easy." "That's because I knew what I didn't want more than what I did." She smiled. "Sometimes that's enough." We shook hands in the lobby. Patricia headed toward the parking garage while I stood there for a moment, not quite ready to leave. 7 years of marriage. 9 years together. Over in less than 10 minutes. I should have felt something. Relief, sadness, anger, something. But I just felt empty. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that now that it was gone, I didn't know how to walk without it. I pulled out my phone and called James. "It's done," I said when he answered. "Officially?" "Officially. Judge signed the decree about 5 minutes ago." "How do you feel?" "Weird. Empty. I don't know." "That's normal. You want company?" "Not yet. I think I need to sit with this for a bit." "All right. But call me if you change your mind. I'll bring drinks." "I know you will." I hung up and started walking toward the parking garage. The cold felt good, clarifying. "David." I turned. Melissa was standing about 20 feet away, her lawyer nowhere in sight. She had her coat wrapped tight around herself, hands in pockets. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. "Just 5 minutes?" I could have said no, should have said no. But something made me nod. She walked over slowly like she was approaching something dangerous. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing up. For not making this harder than it had to be. I don't know. For everything, I guess. It's over now. That's what you wanted, right? What I wanted was for things to be different. But yeah, it being over is probably best." We stood there in awkward silence. People walked past us, going about their lives, having no idea they were witnessing the death rattle of a marriage. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," Melissa continued. "For real this time. Not because I'm trying to get something from you, just because I am. Okay. And I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I threw away something good for something that looked exciting but wasn't real, and I'm paying for it now." "Kyle really ended things?" She nodded. "Last night. He said he couldn't do this anymore, that it was too complicated, that he needed to focus on his business, that I came with too much baggage." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it, at least a little. "No, you're not. You're right, I'm not." She smiled sadly. "I don't blame you. I wouldn't be sorry either if I were you. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a monster. I just think you made selfish decisions." "That's generous of you. That's realistic." She looked at me for a long moment. "Do you remember our first date?" The question surprised me. "The Italian place?" "Yeah." "We talked for 4 hours. About everything and nothing. And when you walked me to my car, you didn't try to get me. You just said, 'I'd really like to see you again.'" "I remember." I thought that was so sweet, so respectful. I told my roommate about it that night, said I might have met someone special. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that what we had was real, at least at the beginning. I didn't fake that. I know you didn't. But somewhere along the way, I stopped choosing it, stopped choosing you, and by the time I realized what I was doing, it was too late." "Yeah, it was." "I hope you find someone who chooses you every day, who doesn't get scared or bored or distracted. You deserve that. I hope you figure out what you actually want before you hurt someone else trying to find it." She flinched slightly. "That's fair. It's honest." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, extended her hand. In her palm was her wedding ring. "I don't want to keep this," she said. "It doesn't feel right." I looked at the ring, simple gold band. I'd spent 2 months' salary on it. Thought I was making a forever investment. "Keep it," I said. "Pawn it if you want. I don't care." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I don't want reminders." She closed her hand around the ring. "Okay, thank you." We stood there for another moment. Two people who'd promised forever to each other, now permanent strangers. "Take care of yourself, Melissa." "You too, David. And for what it's worth, I did love you. Maybe not well, maybe not the way you deserved, but I did." "I know." She turned and walked away. I watched her go, watched her reach her car, get in, sit there for a minute before starting the engine. Then she drove away, and I was alone in the parking garage. I pulled out my phone and looked at her contact information, thought about all the texts we'd exchanged, all the calls, all the "I love yous" and "miss yous" and "see you soons." All of it history now. I deleted her contact. Then I deleted her lawyer's number, Patricia's number, Kyle's number, Brian's number. Every piece of that chapter. Gone. Because I didn't need them anymore. Didn't need the reminders. Didn't need the connection. I stood there for another minute, watching her disappear into traffic. Then I got in my truck and went home. Winston greeted me at the door like I'd been gone for years. I changed out of my suit, fed him, and took him for a long walk around the complex. My phone rang. "James." "How'd it go?" "It's done. Officially divorced as of an hour ago." "How do you feel?" "Tired." "Yeah, I bet. You want company? I can bring drinks and food. Actually, I think I just want to be alone tonight. You sure? Yeah, but thanks. All right. But if you change your mind, call me. I will. I spent the evening doing absolutely nothing. No TV, no music. Just sitting on the futon with Winston, staring at the wall, letting my mind wander. I thought about the day I'd met Melissa, a coffee shop near campus. She'd been studying for an exam, and I'd accidentally sat at her table because the place was crowded. We'd ended up talking for 3 hours. I thought about our first date, dinner at a cheap Italian place, then a walk through the park, even though it was raining. I thought about the day I'd proposed, on a beach in Florida, sunset, nervous as hell, convinced she'd say no. I thought about our wedding, small ceremony, immediate family only, vows we'd written ourselves. I thought about 7 years of building a life together, of learning each other's rhythms, of becoming a unit, and I thought about the moment it all started crumbling. That conversation 3 weeks before Christmas. Her request, my refusal, everything that came after. Sitting there in my small apartment with my dog and my freedom, I tried to figure out if I had any regrets. And honestly, I didn't. I'd loved Melissa. I'd been a good husband. I'd tried to make it work. But when she'd shown me who she really was, someone willing to lie and manipulate and gaslight to get what she wanted, I'd done the only thing I could. I'd left. And I'd made sure she understood that leaving had consequences. Had I been petty? Maybe. Vindictive? Probably. Unfair? No. Because everything I'd done had been in response to her choices, her lies, her attempts to rewrite history. I hadn't started this. I'd just finished it. My phone buzzed. Email notification from Patricia. Subject, final divorce decree. I opened the attachment. There it was. Official court document. Marriage dissolved. Assets divided. Everything finalized. I saved it to my computer, filed it in a folder labeled Important Documents, and closed my laptop. That chapter was over. Tomorrow, I'd start thinking about the next one. But tonight I just existed in my apartment, with my dog, in peace, and that was more than enough. 2 weeks after the divorce finalized, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this David Cross? Who's asking? My name is Tom Bradley. I'm a building inspector with the city. I wanted to follow up on a report you filed regarding the River Lofts warehouse project. I sat up straighter. I didn't file a report. We have an anonymous tip in our system traced to an email account that's been linked to your name through our investigation. That wasn't me. Sir, we take false reports seriously. It wasn't false. There were code violations. Your inspectors found them. That's true, but we're required to follow up on the source of the tip. If you filed the report, I didn't file it. Someone else must have used my information, but since your inspectors found actual violations, does it matter? A pause. I suppose not. As long as you're aware that filing false reports carries penalties. I am, and I didn't file any reports. Understood. Thank you for your time. He hung up. I sat there processing that conversation. Someone had filed a report using my name, or at least linking it to me. Who? I opened my laptop and searched for news about the River Lofts project. Found an article from yesterday. Local development project faces major setback. The River Lofts warehouse conversion has been delayed indefinitely after multiple code violations were discovered during routine inspections. Developer Kyle Patterson stated that repairs will require significant time and capital investment. His business partner, Brian Foster, declined to comment. Delayed indefinitely. That was worse than I'd thought. Worse than anything I'd actually planned. I kept reading. Sources close to the project suggest that financial issues may force the developers to sell the property before completion. Patterson has already suspended his construction crew and is reportedly seeking additional investors. They were in trouble. Real trouble. And someone had made sure of it by filing that report in my name. My phone rang. Kyle. I debated answering. Decided I might as well hear whatever he had to say. Yeah? You son of a... He caught himself. You couldn't just let it go, could you? Let what go? The inspections, the reports. You've been harassing my project for weeks. I haven't done anything since the divorce finalized. The city says someone filed a report 2 days ago. Another anonymous tip about structural issues. And they traced it back to you. That wasn't me. Then who was it? I don't know, but I have no reason to mess with your project anymore. I got what I wanted. The divorce is done. You and Melissa are done. Why would I waste time on you? Because you're vindictive. Maybe I was, but I'm not anymore. I'm done with all of this. Then explain why inspectors showed up yesterday and found problems that are going to cost me $200,000 to fix. Maybe your building actually has problems. These weren't there before. Or maybe they were and nobody noticed. Old buildings are full of surprises. This is convenient timing. For who? Not for me. I don't benefit from your project failing. Kyle was breathing hard. If I find out you're behind this, you'll what? Sue me? With what money? From what I hear, you're already stretched thin. How do you know that? Public records, same way I knew everything else. Stay away from me. Stay away from my business. Stay away from Melissa. Gladly, I have no interest in any of you. He hung up. I sat there wondering if I was telling the truth. Was I behind the new inspections? No. But did I feel bad about them? Also no. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You're welcome. I stared at that message. Who is this? Someone who thinks people should face consequences for their choices. What did you do? Just helped karma along a little. Kyle Patterson destroyed your marriage. Someone should destroy something of his. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. Consider it a gift. From someone who's been where you are. Who are you? No response. I stared at that exchange for a long time. Someone had been watching this whole situation, following the story, tracking the players, and they'd decided to take matters into their own hands. Part of me should have been concerned, should have reported this to someone. But the rest of me? The rest of me felt something that might have been satisfaction. Kyle Patterson had pursued a married woman, had helped her lie and cheat, had given her ultimatums when things got complicated, had walked away when it wasn't fun anymore, and now he was paying for it, not because of me directly, but because of the situation I'd created, the pressure I'd applied, the dominoes I'd set up. Someone else had just knocked them down. I deleted the text thread and put my phone away. Whatever was happening with Kyle's project wasn't my problem anymore. I spent the rest of the day cleaning my apartment, grocery shopping, doing laundry, normal things, boring things. My phone rang again. This time it was Melissa. Did you hear about Kyle? She asked without preamble. I heard something. His project is falling apart. He might lose everything. That's unfortunate. David, did you... No, I didn't. I haven't thought about Kyle in 2 weeks. He thinks you're behind it. He's wrong. Then who is? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. She was quiet for a moment. He called me last night, drunk, said everything he'd worked for was coming apart, that he didn't know how he was going to recover from this. And you're telling me this why? Because I thought you should know, that whatever you did... I didn't do anything, Mel. Kyle's problems are his own. Maybe he cut corners. Maybe he made bad business decisions. Maybe the building actually has structural issues. None of that has anything to do with me. He was already struggling before all this started. Then maybe he shouldn't have taken on a project he couldn't afford to finish. You sound happy about this. I'm not happy. I'm indifferent. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Happy would mean I'm celebrating his failure. Indifferent means I simply don't care one way or another. His business is not my problem. But you started all of this? No. You started this when you cheated on me. Kyle continued it when he dated a married woman. I just refused to roll over and take it. Everything that happened after that was a consequence of your choices and his, not mine. She made a sound that might have been a sob or a laugh. We really screwed this up, didn't we? Yeah, you did. Not we. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't try to manipulate anyone. All I did was refuse to accept being treated like garbage. So no, not we, you. You're never going to forgive me, are you? Probably not. But I'm also not going to spend my life being angry about it. I'm just going to move on. I wish I could do that. You can. You just have to accept that actions have consequences and move forward anyway. Is that what you're doing? Every day. She was quiet for a long moment. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope you figure out what you actually want, before you ruin someone else's life trying to find it. I hung up. That night, I made dinner for myself and James. He came over with drinks and dessert, and we ate on my small kitchen table like normal people living normal lives. So, James said, you're really done with all of it? Completely. No more revenge plots, no more scheming. Never had revenge plots, just boundaries. Right. Boundaries that happen to destroy your ex-wife's new relationship and her boyfriend's business. Correlation isn't causation. That's convenient, I smiled. Very. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then James asked the question I'd been waiting for. What now? What do you mean? I mean, you've spent the last 3 months focused on this divorce. Now it's over. What are you going to do with all that energy? I thought about it. Live my life, I guess. Work, save money, maybe take a trip somewhere, figure out who I am without being married to Melissa. That sounds healthy. Does it? More healthy than plotting revenge? I told you. I know. Boundaries. He grinned. But between you and me, I think you enjoyed it, at least a little. He wasn't wrong. I had enjoyed it. The planning, the execution, the satisfaction of watching everything fall into place exactly as I'd intended. But I'd also learned something important. Revenge, or boundaries, or whatever you want to call it, didn't fix anything. It didn't heal the hurt, or erase the betrayal, or undo the damage. It just balanced the scales. Melissa had lied to me, made me feel like I was the problem, tried to rewrite history, and I'd made sure she understood that those choices had costs. Was that revenge? Maybe. Was it justice? Possibly. Was it necessary? For my own peace of mind. Absolutely. You know what the weirdest part is? I said to James. What? I don't hate her. I should, but I don't. Because you got even? Because I got free. Everything else was just clearing the path to freedom. James raised his drink. To freedom, then. I clinked my glass against his. To freedom. We finished dinner, watched a terrible action movie, and talked about nothing important. Work gossip, sports, plans for the summer, normal conversation, normal friendship, normal life. When James left around midnight, I cleaned up, fed Winston, and sat on my futon in the dark. My phone was face down on the table. No messages, no calls, no drama, just silence. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely at peace. The marriage was over, the divorce was final. The consequences had played out. I'd given Melissa exactly what she'd said I didn't deserve. A gift, freedom, space, consequences. Everything wrapped up with a bow made of divorce papers and delivered on Christmas. Was it petty? Sure. Was it effective? Absolutely. Was it worth it? I looked around my small apartment, my space, my rules, my life. Yeah, it was worth it. I pulled out my phone one last time and opened my messages. Found the text from that unknown number. You're welcome. I typed back, thank you. Then I deleted the conversation and turned off my phone. Tomorrow I'd start fresh. New routine, new goals, new chapter. But tonight I'd just enjoy the quiet, the peace, the freedom. Because after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the fighting, the pressure, the revenge, the consequences. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not to hurt Melissa, not to destroy Kyle, not to win some imaginary war, just to be free. And now I was. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights. Winston joined me, pressing his nose against the glass. We did it, I told him. We made it through. He wagged his tail. Somewhere out there, Melissa was probably crying. Kyle was probably panicking. Lawyers were probably drafting new documents. Life was continuing its messy, complicated, unpredictable course. But in here, in this small apartment with my dog and my peace, everything was exactly as it should be. I smiled. Not because I was happy about what had happened, but because I was free from it. And that was the greatest gift I could have given myself. Better than anything Melissa could have wrapped and put under a tree. Better than any apology or explanation or second chance. Just freedom. Pure, simple, hard-won freedom. I closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. But tonight, I slept like a man who'd finally won the war he never wanted to fight. And when I closed my eyes, there was no anger, no bitterness, no regret. Just peace. And Winston's soft snoring beside me. The world outside could burn for all I cared. In here, everything was quiet. In here, everything was mine. In here, I'd finally given myself the gift I deserved all along. A life without her. 3 months later, I ran into Melissa at a grocery store. She was in the produce section, comparing apples, looking thinner and tired. She saw me at the same time I saw her. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then she smiled. Small. Sad. I nodded, and kept walking. No words, no drama, no explanations. Just two people who used to know each other, passing in a grocery store, living separate lives. As I checked out and loaded groceries into my truck, I realized something. I hadn't thought about her in weeks. Hadn't wondered what she was doing, or who she was with, or whether she regretted her choices. I'd just moved on. The divorce was finalized. The consequences had played out. The story was over. And I was okay. Better than okay. I was free. I drove home, unloaded groceries, fed Winston, and made dinner. My phone didn't ring. No texts, no drama. Just a quiet evening in my apartment with my dog. And you know what? It was perfect. Melissa had told me I didn't deserve a Christmas gift, but I'd given her one anyway, and in the process, I'd given myself something even better, a future without her in it. That was the real gift, the only one that mattered, the one I'd earned. And as I sat on my futon that evening, Winston curled up beside me, I realized something else. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to suffer. I didn't need validation or apologies or recognition. I just needed to be free. And I was, finally, completely, utterly free. That was my gift to myself, and it was worth more than anything else in the world. I picked up my phone and deleted Melissa's contact information. Then I deleted the lawyer's number, Patricia's number, Kyle's number, Brian's number. Every piece of that chapter. Gone. Because I didn't need them anymore. Didn't need the reminders. Didn't need the connection. I was starting over. Clean slate, fresh start. And this time, I was doing it right. On my terms. For myself. Nobody else. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I'd wake up and live my life. The life I'd fought for. The life I'd chosen. The life that was finally, completely, beautifully mine. Winston shifted beside me, and I scratched behind his ears. "Just us now, buddy," I whispered. "Just us." He licked my hand, and in that moment, in that small apartment, with my dog and my freedom, everything was exactly as it should be.